It's time. 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from
Hi,
Grinding
Chris.
Gear Games. Thanks for joining us today as we reveal Path of Exile's next expansion, Lake of Kalandra, which launches on PC and Mac on August 19th, and on Xbox and PlayStation on August 24th.
Sí, ya lo sabía. Go.
Twitch drops are enabled for today's live stream,
Drops,
so make
una
sure you
aclaración,
follow
drops,
the
gente.
instructions below to link your account and earn your Wrangler wings.
Okay.
Here's what you can expect from today's live stream.
Kalandra Challenge Leave,
First,
endgame
we'll debut
improvements.
the trailer for the Lake of Kalandra expansion, and then dive into its challenge league.
¿Qué esperan la
We'll
próxima
discuss the
semana?
further improvements we're making to Path of Exile's endgame in this release.
Nada de Puedes.
There's a slew of new unique items for us to cover, and also a broad power boost to many different uniques. We've got a selection of new skill and support gems to reveal, and are excited to unveil
Nuevos
our
skills y
plans for
support gems.
revamping 3
Nice.
past leagues. Then we'll cover more details about game balance before revealing this league's new supporter packs and what's going to happen in the lead up to launch next week.
Okay.
Our live stream ends with a Q&A session hosted by Ziggy D, where you can ask me your questions in Twitch chat. Then we'll post the full patch notes for you to check out.
Aquí tengo el bingo.
But before we show you the trailer for Lake of Kalandra, I wanted to talk to you about ExileCon. Back in
Exilecon.
2019, we were ready to announce Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile Mobile, and we wanted to do it with a bang. We filled a venue with thousands of Path of Exile fans from around the world and ran our first
No me digas que va a haber
ExileCon
otro.
convention. It was an amazing experience, full of fans interacting with developers, and everyone who attended can vouch for the amazing energy at the event. Announcing Path of Exile 2 on that stage was one of the highlights of my life.
Anunciar Path of Exile 2 en
Since then, we've
ese
been hard at work on Path of
escenario
Exile
fue uno
2.
de los mejores
Now that
momentos de
we're
mi vida.
getting close to release, we will finally be ready to announce the date that the closed beta starts at ExileCon 2023.
Va a haber un Exile
We're holding ExileCon
2023.
2023 in Auckland, New Zealand, on the weekend of the 29th and 30th of July 2023.
Nuevo
In
Exilecon.
addition to the beta start date, we'll also be announcing everything there is to know about new game systems, character classes, items, and so on.
Va a ser
Attendees will be
entonces
able to
a
play
final
Path
de
of
año.
Exile 2 and Path of Exile Mobile, see all the presentations live, meet our development team,
Me-
hang out with their favorite streamers,
meta de
and much
plata
more.
de aquí en adelante
The
para
first
ver
wave
si
of
puedo ir a
tickets
esta
will go
mierda.
on sale in 2 weeks.
I need it.
We'll make a news post tomorrow with more information so that you have time to determine if you're able to attend before the tickets go on sale. We are so
Nice.
excited to finally talk about what we've been working on and to let some of you experience the next generation of action RPGs. In the meantime, we have a strong lineup of Path of Exile 1 expansions underway, and today we're proud to unveil Path of Exile Lake of Kalandra,
Listo, ya
which
tenemos
launches next
fue
week.
2 news. Ok. Seguimos. Ok. Ok. Please be good, please be good.
Exile, you have wandered far to arrive at the shores of my lake. A hidden realm I have overseen for longer than time itself. These waters harbor deadly secrets.
Ok. Calata confirmada, creo.
Rayclass
Mirror
is
table.
reflected here.
Contiene.
Assemble it as you see fit. But the mirror
Tú
distorts
armas
reality.
el mapa donde vas a estar.
Beware the image that strikes back.
The Kalandra Challenge League. Endgame, ¿qué? 4 nuevas gemas. 14 nuevos ítems únicos. Trickster Ascendancy Rework, ok. Más de 100 únicos rebalanceados. Arc Nemesis Rework, I knew it. Harvest Rework, Beyond Rework.
The lake calls you, Exile. Will you endure? Or will you drown?
Beyond y Harvest. Y parece que es como medio al estilo de síntesis. En el sentido que tienes que armarte el mapa donde vas
In
a
the Kalandra
estar.
Challenge League, you will travel to the mirrored lake that granted Kalandra her powers of reflection. We want you to experience the story for yourself, so I'll avoid spoiling the details here.
No te va a decir nada de la historia,
When
tienes
you
que
get to
disfrutarla por ti
explore the
mismo.
league next week, you'll find out more about Kalandra and her motivations.
Pronto vas a entender las motivaciones de Kalandra cuando
Your
empiece la liga.
experience with Kalandra so far is probably of a coveted mirror, which duplicates items by reflecting them. The
Tu
lake
experiencia de
itself has
Kalandra
the
es que
power to
tienes un
reflect
mirror que
entire
duplica los
encounters
ítems.
from elsewhere in Rayclust. As you explore the lake, these reflections emerge from its mirrored surface.
A medida que exploras el lago, van a aparecer reflexiones en el lago que se va formando.
Are encounters with hordes of monsters.
Algunos son encuentros con muchos monstruos y a veces encontrarás enemigos muy poderosos reflejados de algún otro lugar de Rayclust. Normalmente, las reflexiones tienen que ver con contenido de ligas, como aquí en Harbinger. A veces te van a conseguir unas columnas.
This tablet invites you to construct a custom set of encounters at the Lake of
It's a reflection of
Kalandra,
delirium,
offering a series of different
y la puedes
reflections to
poner.
place in whatever layout you wish.
Tú vas
Each of
armando
these
con el mapa con la
reflections
reflexión que tú
represents an
quieras.
encounter that you must defeat when you next travel to the lake.
Ok, y eso es un encuentro que vas a
Once you
tener
have
que
assigned a
derrotar
reflection
cuando
to
viajes de
every
nuevo para
location
allá.
on your mirror tablet, which will take a few
La cámara.
areas, you can open a portal to the Lake of Kalandra itself.
Diablos.
There you will get to experience these reflections of Rayclust as Kalandra manifests each encounter you have chosen.
Ahí está.
But as you push farther out onto the lake-shrouded waters, you will find each encounter to be more difficult, but more rewarding. This difficulty value counts up by 1 for each location away from the entrance the encounter is.
Mientras más lejos
Players
esté, es
wanting
más
the best
difícil.
rewards will try to engineer tablets that have long, windy strings of encounters, reaching very high difficulty values by the end.
La
To
gente
do
que...
this, there are occasional options that can be chosen which allow you to move and swap the entrance, reflections, and water tiles on the tablet.
La más lejana va a ser la más difícil, así que si quieres una mayor dificultad, tienes que poner lo que más quieras más lejos.
Special abilities that let you manipulate the options you have available on each tablet. If you don't like any of the choices available to you, you can earn the ability to skip picking one entirely.
New currency. Puedes
The next ability
rerolear
is
las
even
opciones que te
stronger.
dan.
It lets you re-roll the list of options so that you can immediately pick another one. Finally, you can earn the ability to exile a choice entirely. For the rest of this tablet, that choice will no longer
Puedes
appear.
exiliar una opción para que no te vuelva a aparecer más por el resto de esta tableta.
Once you reach maps, you'll be able to itemize your mirrored tablets so that they don't have to be played immediately.
Puedes
They can be
itemizarlas
stored
para
for
que no tengas que
later or
hacerlas en el
traded with
momento.
other players.
Es como un templo. Y lo puedes tradear con otros jugadores.
As you visit the Lake of Kalandra to attempt your mirrored tablets, there are many types of rewards
That's
you
so
can
cool.
find. An encounter that is based on a past league implicitly grants the rewards from that league, but with extra juice so that you're not missing out on bonuses you'd have obtained if your Atlas tree applied to the lake.
Dice que
Other encounters that
los
aren't based on
encuentros que
past
consigas
leagues
van a
generally yield a
van a ser
reward
como
chest
que
that rises
más
out of the
fuertes,
lake when you
van a ser
complete the
mejores.
encounter.
Porque no se aplican las cosas del Atlas, pero van a ser mejores para que no se
Certain
sienta mal.
reflections grant you access to a new variation on rare items, exclusive to the Kalandra Challenge League. When you
Estas
complete
versiones
the
te dan
encounter, you'll get access to some
nuevos
reflecting
ítems.
mist, which presents you with a difficult choice. It generates a rare ring or amulet with an unusual set of mods. Some are very high, and some are very negative, which hurt your character.
Ok. Vamos a
The item is
70%
then
del área
duplicated,
resistant.
with the reflected copy having inverse mods. Negative
Y la
ones are now
copia tiene lo
positive and vice
contrario.
versa. The amount that all of these mods are scaled
Oh.
up by is based on the difficulty of the encounter you just completed. You may only pick one of these items to
Solo
keep.
puedes elegir uno de los dos y todo depende
It'll often be
de
a
qué
tough
tan difícil
choice, with each
sea
item having its own
el
strong
ítem que hayas
pros
elegido.
and cons. But sometimes you'll be offered an item where the negative mods aren't downsides for your build, and the juiced up positive mods are very attractive.
A veces te van a dar
There
cosas
are also some
negativas,
special new jewelry-based types
pero
that you
las
can
cosas
rarely
buenas
receive
son
from
muy
this process.
atractivas. 105 de Strength.
One rare and difficult encounter rewards you with an advanced version of this crafting process. It allows you to bring your own ring or amulet, distorting and reflecting it with the same process described
Tú
before.
puedes llevar tu ítem y
The mods
distorsionarlo.
are scaled up in value and some are randomly negated.
Algunos escalan en valor y
The
otros son
reflected copy
cambiados
has
al
the
azar.
inverse set of negations.
Y la copia tiene
It will
todo al
certainly be
revés.
tempting to gamble with some of your
Más
best jewelry
dos
to try
al
to double the
nivel
values that really matter for your build and
De
negate
todas
the
las
ones you
Fire
don't care
Skill
about.
Gems. Y 178 de vida.
If you're very lucky, you may find a special league-exclusive unique ring at the lake.
Reflex
Kalandra's
tu
touch
otro
mirrors the
ring.
effect of your other ring. The Kalandra Challenge League has something for everyone.
¿Qué?
It's an out-of-area combat league where you build your own sequences of encounters. It lets you fully dictate your desired level of risk and reward and fully customize what content
Aquí
you
tú
play.
dictas qué nivel de
It features a
recompensa y
powerful
riesgo
crafting
quieres
system,
tener.
valuable rewards, and offers a glimpse into the lore of one of Path of Exile's most iconic characters.
Y te
We
da
can't wait to play it with you
un
next week.
vistazo de lo que será el lore de uno de los personajes más icónicos de Path of Exile.
In every expansion leading up to Path of Exile 2's release, we'll be improving Path of Exile's endgame with new content to explore
Nuevo contenido de
and new
endgame.
ways to customize your endgame experience. In the Lake of Kalandra expansion, we're introducing Atlas Memories. They aren't a league feature, they're part of the core game, affecting standard and persisting once the Kalandra League has ended.
Ajá.
In maps, you'll very rarely find a memory item, which represents a set of memories that an NPC has about their past. Something special happened to them while exploring maps, and you're
Vas a
able to
conseguir las
experience
memorias.
those events for yourself. Let's have a
Y
look
puedes
at a couple of
experimentar
examples.
esos
In this
eventos por ti
Atlas
mismo.
memory, Kirik tells you about the time that he stumbled across a staging ground for a Harbinger invasion of Rayclust. Each successive map you play in the sequence has more and more Harbinger portals and invaders that you must deal with. This is a memory of Nikos.
¿Es
where
una
he
memoria
enters
de
a
Nikos?
sequence of maps that were entirely consumed by permanent breaches.
Donde
like
fueron
a Breach
consumidos por
Lord's domain.
brechas
He survived to talk about it, but will
permanentes.
you? Right-click a memory and apply it to a completed map on your atlas. It'll mark out a series of adjacent maps that the atlas memory will span. When you next talk to the relevant NPC in your hideout, they'll tell you about their recollections and will allow you to start exploring the memory. Each map in the
Oh.
sequence is provided for free by the
Eso es
NPC,
muy cool.
and you'll be able to roll it like usual before running it.
Te va a dar el
Because
mapa
these maps are memories
gratis.
of the NPC, they are not affected by your atlas tree.
Y no
However,
está
the
afectado
content
por
is
tu
generally
atlas.
as difficult and rewarding as a fully specialized atlas tree would cause it to be.
Claro, dice que es tan recompensante como fuese hacer un
Each successive map
atlas
in the
totalmente
sequence gets
especializado en
harder
eso.
and more rewarding as the memories intensify.
A medida que las memorias se intensifican, van a ser más
very
difíciles.
rare and valuable, so you'll probably want to complete them yourself if you can.
Pero son muy valiosas, así que generalmente vas a querer completarlas solo.
For players who love lore, Atlas memories help expand on the backstory of key NPCs. For players wanting to try out different league mechanics at quite high levels of juice that they haven't specialized their Atlas for, memories let them do this without a bunch of respecking. And for everyone else, Atlas memories are a great way to earn some valuable items, if you're strong enough to complete them.
Si te gusta el lore, te va a traer un montón de lore estas memorias.
The
Si te
Lake of
gusta...
Kalandra expansion also contains a
Ultimatum!
new unique map that I'm quite excited about.
Yes!
The Trial Master is back. This boss from Ultimatum, and more importantly, the unique items he drops, have been sorely
Where is
missed
it?
and will be making a return as the Tower of Ordeals
Where-
unique map
where
in
is
Lake
it?
of Kalandra. This map can be created by completing difficult endgame
Got it.
file content. We have not forgotten about the rest of Ultimatum and have a specific plan for how it will return in the future.
Ok, dice que este es un mapa
Whenever we're improving
particular
Path of Exile's endgame,
de
we take
Ultimatum, pero
every
no
opportunity
viene todo
we can to
Ultimatum.
add new variations of rewards that you can find. We don't want to say too much about how these are acquired, but in this expansion, it's possible to very rarely find special foil versions of any pinnacle boss unique item. These have the same stats as regular ones, but are certain to be highly prized by collectors or wealthy players wanting to show off.
Ok, dice que a veces van a salir cosas que sean foil,
Lake
que
of
son
Kalandra
iguales a las
expansion
normales,
contains
solamente
14
que
new unique
se ven más
items.
lindas y van a ser más
In
caras.
addition to the Kalandra's
No es
Clutch
Legacies.
ring that is exclusive to the Kalandra Challenge
Solo es
League,
shiny.
we've introduced a new endgame pinnacle boss reward, a supporter unique, the
Damn,
Tower of
qué
Ordeals
lindo
unique
se ven
map,
esos.
6 new Grand Spectrum jewels, and even some leveling uniques.
Se ven
The
hermosos.
first we're
esos.
showing you today is Soul Ascension, a pair of gloves designed by Zizaran.
Sí,
They
serán.
drop from the Uber Elder.
Uber
Soul
Elder.
Eater is a very powerful buff, but it is usually hard to obtain in boss fights.
Ok.
This unique grants you the ability to gain stacks of Soul Eater when you hit a unique enemy.
Un
but
Soul
also
Eater-
makes you lose those stacks if you aren't near one. Ghost Wraith is a leveling unique which allows you to play as an almost pure energy shield character during early parts of the campaign. We'll reveal the other new unique
Esto
items
es
in
algo
this
para
expansion
levelear.
over the next week.
Que te permitas levelear como un personaje Energy Shield.
Path of Exile has a lot of
Oh.
unique items in its core
El de
drop
Soul
pool.
Eater está
Over
bueno.
700
Gana Soul Eater cada vez que golpeas a un enemigo
We
único.
feel that there are two big problems with unique items at the moment. The first is that you find too many, and the second is that they are generally pretty useless when you do.
Inicialmente
Sure,
dice tiene dos problemas.
or build enabling uniques that feel amazing to find.
Consigues
but
muchos
the
únicos
majority of
y
unique
la mayoría
items
son
found throughout
inútiles.
the game are rarely actually useful to you.
Y la mayoría son
In the
poco
Lake of
usables.
Kalandra expansion, we have made a lot of changes here.
Hicieron muchos cambios ahorita.
We have reduced the overall drop rate of uniques throughout the game and have rebalanced and overhauled over 100 existing unique items, with an emphasis on
Reducieron el
uniques in
drop
the
rate de
core
los
drop
únicos
pool, including leveling uniques and some endgame uniques.
y mejorar y
You're
reworkear
going to
algunos
find unique items less
únicos.
frequently now, but when you do, they're going to be a lot more punchy.
Vas a conseguirlos menos, pero van a ser
Nectar's
mucho
Lantern
mejores.
has been completely changed from the ground up. Previously, it was trying to allow you to play a hybrid attacker and spellcaster, but it didn't really work very well. With the new design, it's a lot more elegant and delivers on this goal by simply granting high damage and the Battle Mage effect, so that your weapon damage is added to your
Battle
spells.
Mage. Con un montón de daño.
Thousand Ribbons is an example of an item where we merely needed to tweak values on the existing mods to make it a lot better.
Solo
We
tienen
want
que
mod
cambiar.
value rolls to matter more, and this item now showcases that well. If you find a high rolled one early on, you're probably not replacing it for a long time.
Si consigues uno que tenga un high roll al principio, no lo vas a cambiar por un largo tiempo,
was
está
trying
verdad.
to deliver the Blood Mage fantasy by allowing you to spend life to cast your spells. This was meant to be special because the Blood Magic keystone was far away from the Witch starting location on the skill tree.
20% de chance de
Unfortunately,
hacer
this
double
item wasn't really
damage.
powerful enough to justify its use. It has now been overhauled, and alongside Blood Magic, it grants a powerful multiplicative damage boost.
20% es bastante.
With over 100 uniques rebalanced in this way, your play experience is now punctuated by quite large bursts of power when you find one. We'll continue to examine the power level and rarity of more unique items in subsequent expansions. The Lake of Kalandra expansion
Me
includes
gusta.
3 new skill gems and 1 new support gem. Alchemist Mark is a new mark skill. Igniting or poisoning the marked target creates burning or caustic ground underneath them,
Yeah.
based on the damage of the strongest ignite or poison on the enemy. The damage of the ground effects also scales with
Hizo un
curse and mark
desastre.
effect, providing a non-standard way to scale your
Una
build's
nueva
damage.
marca.
Hitting the marked target also refills some of your flask charges. This new skill opens up an extra source of damage for ignite or poison-focused characters, especially for ignite builds that want an alternative to flame surge, or poison builds that cause fewer, higher damage poisons.
Alchemist
This
Mark te
high-level
ayuda a
build
recargar
uses
los
Flame
flasks
Blast, with 100% of the damage converted to chaos,
y 100%
to
del daño es
inflict
convertido a
huge poisons on
caos
enemies.
para tener mucho
When
poison.
Alchemist Mark is cast on an enemy first, that enemy drops caustic ground when it's poisoned, scaled by those big Flame Blast poison hits, melting everything into a puddle.
Cuando se
Galvanic
se
Field is a
envenena,
new
deja
shock-themed spell.
un pozo
When used, you
de,
gain a buff, granting
de
a small
poison
bonus chance
abajo del
to
enemigo.
shock. When you next shock an enemy, the buff is consumed and the enemy becomes energized, repeatedly zapping themselves and nearby targets, a lot like ball lightning. If the energized enemy dies, then the energy sits at their location and continues to zap things. Galvanic Field's area of effect and zap damage scale with the strength of the shock on the target.
Ok, aplicas un shock.
While
Si el enemigo le
Galvanic
aplica
Field is great
shock,
for any build that
todo lo que está
shocks,
cerca de
you can
él
even fully build around it, and use a skill
le
with
mete
increased shock
rayitos.
effectiveness like
Y si
Arc,
muere,
to
queda
shock
en el
enemies
sitio.
and kill them with a ball of death.
Ok, suena bien.
Lightning Conduit is another new shock-themed spell. A wave propagates out from the target location, causing lightning bolts to strike all shocked enemies in a large area. The damage is scaled by the strength of the shock on each enemy. Lightning Conduit cannot itself shock and won't hit non-shocked enemies at all, so the challenge with this skill is to find a way to consistently apply powerful shocks to your targets to make the most of Lightning Conduit's high damage potential and area of effect.
Tiene mucho daño, pero no puede
This
aplicar
high-level
shock.
build uses Wave of Conviction to shock enemies, before casting Lightning Conduit until they're obliterated.
Entonces,
For longer fights, it
tú
can
choqueas
employ
al enemigo
Galvanic Field
mientras
to create
el
a
shock sea
constant
más
source of
fuerte,
lightning damage.
usas el Lightning Conduit y revienta todo. Spellinger vibes,
Last
sí.
but not least, Overcharge Support is a new support gem that causes supported skills to deal less damage, but makes them inflict much stronger shocks and grants them a higher chance to shock. Overcharge lets many different lightning skills create powerful shocks. Use this to take advantage of Shock's large damage multiplier, or to activate Lightning Conduit and Galvanic Field.
Ok, estamos en support. Mira, esos
As part
fueron
of Exile
tres
expands, we
nuevas
often revisit
activas
previous
y un
leagues,
support.
reworking them so they stay relevant and engaging. In Lake of Kalandra, we are targeting 3 such leagues: Archnemesis, Beyond, and Harvest. The larger context here is that we've been re-examining what role rare and magic monsters have in Path of Exile. The introduction of Archnemesis
Got it.
modifiers as the monster mod pool prompted quite a lot of discussion about how often you should encounter rare and magic monsters, how difficult they should be to kill, and how rewarding their death should be. Previously,
Okay,
League
Archnemesis.
content made fights hard by spawning a lot of rare monsters. A whole lot. in some cases 6 to 8 times the normal rate of rare monsters. Now that we have better mods available to make fights against rare monsters individually challenging, we have gone through the whole game and normalized the rate that rare monsters are spawned at. Some leagues had quite large reductions in spawn rate.
Ok,
You
quieren
won't
que
encounter
Arnemesis...
situations with dozens of rare monsters on screen at once anymore. Alongside this reduction of how many rare monsters you'll face,
Van a
we have
haber
improved
muchos
their
menos
rewards and made
monstruos
sure that they
raros.
scale with both difficulty of the encounter and any item rarity or quantity bonuses that you have.
Pero que va a escalar mucho mejor con la
During the
rareza y la
campaign,
quantity que
you'll only
tenga
encounter
y el mod
1
en
and
sí.
2 mod rare monsters. The 2 mod encounters are a bit harder and have better drops.
Okay.
In maps, you'll stop encountering 1 mod rare monsters entirely, and will mostly encounter 2 and 3 mod rare monsters. It'll
Mapas van a
also be
conseguir
possible to
cosas
encounter
que tengan
4
de
mod
2 o
rare
de 3.
monsters again. Not only are the innate item drop bonuses scaled up significantly on monsters with many mods, but we have made these challenging encounters rewarding in another way too.
Dijeron que es imposible conseguir
About a third of the
monstruos
more
que
powerful
tengan
Archnemesis modifiers
4
now use a
mods.
special reward conversion system. For example, if you defeat a monster with a Corruptor mod, all of its drops become corrupted.
Ah,
The Solaris Touched mod converts all of its item drops to maps.
Depende del tipo de
The
modificador que
Acaba
sea.
Touch mod will cause the rarity of its drops to be upgraded by 1 tier. So magic
Los...
becomes rare, rare becomes unique, and so on.
Oh, dependiendo del mod que estés derrotando, las
If you're
recompensas
lucky,
van
you
a
can
tener
find
que ver
these
con eso.
conversion modifiers on both the 3rd and 4th mod of a rare monster. This causes them to stack together. So if you kill a 4 mod rare monster with both the Entangler and Katava Touched mods on it, its heavily juiced drops will also be converted to jewels with their rarity upgraded by a tier.
Ok.
Due to the high amount of inherent item rarity that 4 mod rare monsters have, this may result in several unique jewels dropping.
Ok.
This conversion system is fully compatible with your item
Gargantua
rarity and
and
quantity
Fire.
bonuses, as well as the drop bonuses from all other Archnemesis mods. Going forward, we want to make sure that a lot more item reward mechanics scale with your character item bonuses. Get your
All
Magic 5
DIOS
characters ready.
modificador.
As a result of this system, when you do
Y
encounter
dice que
a rare
escala mucho
monster with
mejor con
many
el Magic
Archnemesis
Find.
mods, you
Que
are
Alco
well
está feliz.
rewarded for the difficult fight. We have also been listening to feedback about the Archnemesis mods that can spawn on magic monsters. Too many of them had external visual clarity issues like on-death effects. We have toned these down on magic monsters so that more of them are stat-based bonuses that aren't so spammy. Encounters that
Okay.
spawn a series of magic monsters now make sure to preserve the same Archnemesis modifiers between the monsters
Dicen
rather
que
than
los
rolling a
monstruos
different one
mágicos
for each
no van a
monster.
tener tantas cosas on death, lo cual está
This will
bueno.
further help keep the game state understandable in hectic situations. Beyond was
Ok,
introduced
está
in
bien.
August 2014,
Válido.
initially as a hardcore-only challenge league.
Por cierto.
It's 8 years old now and certainly has several issues. Firstly, the art. Have you ever really taken a close look at a Beyond demon? It is literally a bandit from Act 2, dunked in red paint.
¿Has visto alguna vez visto un
The
demonio
second issue is its
de...
balance. The number of magic and rare monsters spawned is so
Beyond.
much higher than the rest of the game. And whatever problems that resulted in
no.
before are magnified now that rare monsters are meant to be more difficult. Beyond also spawns way too many unique bosses, which causes its own set of issues. In Lake of Kalandra, we have given Beyond much more than a fresh coat of paint. The Scourge
shit.
has taken over the realm of the Beyond demons. The old bandit Beyond demons are gone. Summoning monsters from Beyond will now summon Scourge monsters and bosses. We have completely rebalanced the rate that Beyond monsters and bosses spawn at, so that it's appropriate for modern Path of Exile.
Adiós Beyond, ahora van a
The
ser
new
monstruos
Beyond
de
monsters
Scourge.
can now occasionally drop the Scourge League's tainted currency items that allow you to modify corrupted items.
A veces van a tirar la currency de Tainted. What?
We've also completely
so
revamped
good!
how harvest crafting works. Rather than being presented with a selection of crafting options that must be used immediately, you now receive itemized tradable life force of the appropriate color.
Ajá,
This
te dan
life
Life
force can
Force.
be used later, in your own time, at the hoarder crafting bench in your hideout.
Wait,
Its crafting options are now priced in terms of this itemized life force currency.
no te van a dar las cosas de
Tier 4
crafteo, te van
bosses are
a
now
dar...
encountered much more
life
frequently
force.
and can drop a key to fight a Shabi. She yields special life force which can be used for a specific set of crafts. We have rebalanced all
Vamos a
harvest
ver.
crafts
Wait,
for the new system
wait.
and have removed a bunch of filler crafts and some ones with deterministic outcomes that were incredibly RNG gated before. Some crafts that provided access to exclusive content, like the special offerings to the goddess, have been removed because these items can now be found in more appropriate locations elsewhere in the game.
Holy shit.
The result
¿Cuánta
of
life
these
force son los
changes is that
augments?
when you complete a harvest, you aren't presented with 30 crafts, which must either be
Sí,
used
me gusta
immediately
mucho.
or unsafely traded to some player you found on a community Discord server. It also means that every bit of life force you receive is going towards a craft that you actually want to use on one of your items, when you're ready to use it.
Coño, qué bien.
Your interaction with the
Esto es
secret
mejor
grove
cambio de
is
la
now
liga.
far simpler as well. Just enter, pick your plots, defeat the
Got it.
monsters, and get on with your mapping. Like with
Excelente.
Alchemist and beyond, we've
Más
also
nunca me va a
addressed the
saltar un
monster
harvest en mi
composition
vida.
of Harvest's fights, so that it doesn't contain too many rare monster mods, and so that it is of appropriate difficulty for its rewards. In addition, the rewards for Harvest now scale with map quantity and pack size, incentivizing you to juice your maps.
Escalan con el map
Previously, the
quantity
crafts
y
you
el pack
received were
size.
not scaled up at all if you played a harder map. Last week, we posted this expansion's character balance manifesto, which detailed the
Holy.
many changes we're making in Lake of Kalandra. There are plenty more
Ok,
changes, which we will
explicación
include in
rápida,
the
ahorita lo voy a
full
explicar
patch notes
después.
that will be posted after
Harvest
this live
ya
stream.
no te va a dar los crafts,
But
te va
on
a
this
dar
stream, I'd
life
like to
force,
talk about a few specific
como el poder,
areas.
el jugo.
Minion
Y
itemization,
tú puedes usar el
exalted
jugo
and divine
cuando tú
orbs,
quieras
and the trickster ascendancy class.
en la mesa de crafteo de Harvest. Va a tener todo.
Historically, minion builds
Y
have
tú
not
solamente
been
necesitas la
particularly
life force.
reliant on the stats of their items. Most of the power of their minions came from their skill and support gems. This led to a few problems. Firstly, it gave them a bit of a free ride compared
Okay.
to most other character builds.
Minions
And
bullshit.
secondly, it
Vamos a
meant that
mutear
it was
esta
hard
parte,
for
¿no?
minion players to actually specialize their character to be really, really good. We want to solve both of these problems in this expansion. Path of Exile is a game
Okay.
about items, and that means that you will now be strongly rewarded for finding items that make your minions better.
Okay.
It also means that, like with other builds, if you find good
Básicamente está
items, you'll be
diciendo
far
de
more
que
damaging and
el
survivable
problema es
than
que
before.
los minions escalaban demasiado con habilidades.
We
Y que
described a variety
con
of minion
nivel
changes in last
de
week's
las
character
gemas
balance
y no con los
manifesto.
ítems. Y
Today,
Path
I
of
want to
Exile es
show
un
you
juego
the new
acerca
base
de
item
ítems.
types we have added to help your minion itemization.
Así que van a añadir un montón de ítems que te ayuden
We've
con
added
eso.
a new ring base type, the Bone Ring. This ring has implicit minion elemental resistances and can roll
Eso
minion-related
es
modifiers.
bastante alto, ¿eh?
We've added level 20 and 50 versions of the Convoking Wand, called the Calling Wand and Covening Wand
Añadieron
respectively.
la
Like the
Convoking Back, pero la
Convoking
pusieron
Wand,
en level
these
más
new
bajo.
base types can roll minion-related modifiers. Some new minion-related mods have been added to the pool of
Eso no está mal, en realidad.
and some existing mods have been adjusted or made more common.
Ni siquiera me gustan los minions, pero siento que es un cambio justo.
We have repurposed the bone-themed spirit shields so that they have minion damage implicit mods rather than spell damage, and can also roll minion-related mods.
Ahí tienen un nuevo shield para ustedes.
Alongside the stable of existing unique items, there's now quite a lot more base type support for minion characters, and good mods on those base types can stack up to some pretty large bonuses for your minions.
Okay, dice que
I
los
also
bonus
wanted to
pueden
discuss
stackear
two of the
fuertemente.
rarest currency items in Path of Exile,
Oh,
Divine Orbs and Exalted Orbs.
quieren hablar de las Divine y
These
las
actually
Exalted.
have the same drop rate, but Exalted Orbs are worth so much more in trade
Tienen el
because
mismo
there's no
drop
easy
rate.
vendor recipe for them, and because they're consumed when you craft certain meta mods onto items.
Eso es interesante.
Out of these two currency items, we would actually prefer the Divine Orb effect to be rarer, so that unique items with good rolls matter more, and so that players can exalt craft their items more frequently. We are making two changes that will impact this. Firstly, we are changing the cost of crafting meta mods so that they cost Divine Orbs rather than Exalted Orbs.
Ah, shit, esto va a cagar el
we are
mercado.
changing the
dude.
6-link vendor recipe to grant 20 orbs of fusing rather than a Divine
Oh,
Orb.
no! Oh, no!
This change will result in Exalted Orbs being far more
Oh,
available
no.
for crafting, and Divine Orbs less available for re-rolling mods and items. It'll certainly be interesting to see what the de facto trade currency becomes next
Oh,
league.
no! Mira, me río y sufro a la vez. Me río porque
Next,
es
I'd like to talk
genial,
about the Trickster
pero
Ascendancy
sufro porque va a
class.
ser horrible.
We haven't been happy with the state of this Ascendancy class recently. While it used to
Okay.
be quite powerful, we moved its defining feature, Ghost Dance, onto the main passive skill tree.
Okay, vamos a ver el
Since then, it
triste.
has had a confused identity and hasn't met the power level
Okay,
of the other
hold it.
Ascendancy classes.
Hold it.
In this expansion, we have reworked the Trickster with a focus on establishing thematically appropriate defenses and ways to manipulate speed.
Ajá, estas
One
temáticas
step
quiero
ahead
ver.
allows the Trickster to manipulate time in an interesting way. Enemies are slower than normal and cannot have their action speed raised above this value, such as through an acceleration shrine. Conversely, the Trickster is faster by default and cannot have action speed lowered below
What?
this value, effectively making them immune to effects that lower action speed such as freeze, chill, or temporal chains.
sea, es como tener Tailwind
Spellbreaker ties
permanentemente.
together spell suppression and energy shield in a powerful way. Spellbreaker grants some spell suppression chance,
20 spell
which is an
suppression?
effect that reduces damage taken from spells. The skill also starts your energy shield recharge half the time you suppress spells. Since trickster characters tend to have a high evasion
Okay.
rating, you will be evading some hits and recharging on others, meaning that your energy shield recharge stays active most of the time. Spellbreaker also further improves defenses by reducing the
Oh
damage
no,
you
les
take from
cayeron
suppressed
anuncios.
spells while on full energy shield.
Twitch. I'm
But there is a lot of
sorry.
different way to
No puedo hacer
recover
nada.
energy shield. The powerful Soul Drinker notable passive is no longer exclusive to forbidden jewels from the Uber-Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds.
Soul
Any trickster
Drinker.
can now allocate this skill.
Oh shit.
Polymath provides more bonus damage, life, mana, and energy shield on kill for each different type of mastery you have allocated. It reinforces the idea of a trickster being a jack of all trades, and will lead to interesting decisions when planning your passive tree, trying to fit in as many different types of masteries as possible.
What? But
Overall, the new trickster is intended to be the
Okay.
Shadow's answer to the champion, but faster. He should be an exciting option for players who want to get a lot of evasion, energy shield, and recovery
What?
out of their Ascendancy class while still being able to melt enemies.
okay, Trickster best class
Alongside
confirmed.
today's livestream, we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Knight and Rogue packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value and points, plus several exclusive
De
microtransactions.
Trickster roto en un
These
parche
packs are only
sí.
available during the Kalandra League and will leave the
Holy
store forever in
shit.
3 months. Every microtransaction you are about to see is entirely cosmetic and does not affect your character's progression or power. The Knight Pack series contains 6 exclusive microtransactions, including the full Nightmaster Armor set. The Aetheric Mana Flask releases a burst of mana upon activation, then draws in energy from the environment as your mana refills.
Ok, cuando sube el maná, se
The Hoarder
refilea.
Stash is a stash skin that can be used in your hideout. As you place items in the stash, they hover above it until you're finished, before being sucked into storage.
Ok, eso es bastante cool.
This is the Nightmaster Armor set. While wearing its helmet, your actions are periodically duplicated by an ethereal copy of yourself. The Blood Scouring Cloak absorbs blood as you slay monsters. It tracks your kill streak and cleans itself off when the slaughter ends. The Ring of the Victor causes a podium to rise up underneath you when you are standing still, elevating you above other players.
Literalmente poniéndote mejor que otros jugadores, más arriba. Oh shit, el portal
The
está genial.
Warlord's Lieutenant Portal summons a warrior spirit who will greet you, cheer you on, and commend you on your actions.
Y te habla.
The Rogue Pack
Okay, that's
series
pretty
has
cool.
6 exclusive microtransactions, including the Rogue Stalker armor set. The Beast of Burden Pit visually carries your items for you, becoming more laden with bags and packs the more full your inventory gets.
Oh, mientras más full estás, más llena. Bro, la peta está. Bro, no voy a hacer un burro porque un perro, me
The
siento
Collector
mal.
Serpent Shield covets the treasure you find. Whenever you pick up an item, the serpent darts out to grab it.
La serpiente agarra. Te roba los ítems.
This is the Rogue Stalker armor set. While
Okay.
wearing its gloves, critical strikes cause blades to appear and slice at your enemies.
Los strikes críticos hace que salgan hojas. Eso se ve bien.
The corpse bloom footprints cause exotic plant growth in your wake. The plants especially love corpses and will seek them out and grow in larger patches around them.
O dice que las plantas salen a tu alrededor como unas footprints normales, pero cuando estás matando, las plantas les gustan los cuerpos y van a crecer sobre todo en los cuerpos. Ok, esta debo admitir que
On
es
the
cool.
other hand, the Undertaker's amulet inters corpses for you, burying
Wait,
them and
ese es el
marking their
Omniscience.
location with gravestones.
Pones cuerpos, o sea, en lugar de los cuerpos ves
The
tumbas.
Unstable Explosives back attachment is not for the faint of heart. As your life gets lower and lower, it gets closer and closer to exploding.
O sea, si
And
mueres,
when you die, your
explotas.
party members will certainly feel it. As I mentioned before, these packs are
Okay,
exclusive to
okay.
the Kalandra League and will leave the store in 3 months. They're available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase. And they directly
Ok,
fund
eso
the
está
ongoing
ridículo, pero me
development
ama.
of Path of Exile 2
Ese,
and Path of
adoro
Exile
eso,
1
adoro
expansions
eso,
like
lo
Lake of
amo.
Kalandra. In addition, the supporter packs introduced with the Sentinel expansion
Lo
will leave
puedes
in the
usar
store
en hardcore,
forever
pero
in
solo
1 week.
funciona una vez.
Now's your last chance to purchase them.
Pero
We
sí
greatly
funciona.
appreciate your support.
Esta es la última
Speaking of
oportunidad
things
para
leaving the
comprar
store,
eso.
the Kerix Vault Pass for Sentinel is only available for the next few days also, and will leave the store forever when the league ends. There's no penalty for purchasing the pass late in the league after you've wrapped up your map completion. So if you're pleased with where you got
Okay,
to in
este
maps
ya lo
and
tengo.
Sentinel and want to lock in your unique skins, it's not too late to buy your pass.
Ok. ¿Cuál es el nuevo? Oh, el nuevo no me lo vas a
Next up, we've
decir.
got the Q&A with Ziggy D.
Okay.
Once that ends, we'll post the full patch notes for Lake of Kalandra. Over the next week, our community team will post teasers for new and revamped unique items, upcoming
No, la
quality of
próxima
life
semana van a
improvements,
poner teasers
and
y
an
cosas.
announcement for the League launch race event.
Y hay una carrera
On
para el
launch
próximo
weekend,
evento.
We'll be running another set of Twitch drops, and expect to release the new mystery box and Kerix Vault Pass in the days after launch.
Van a hacer más Twitch drops.
Thanks for
En
joining
el
us
inicio de
and
la liga.
checking out today's reveals. We can't
Twitch
wait
drops.
to see you in Rayclast on August 19th. We'll begin the Q&A in a few moments, so please get your questions ready in chat.
Oh, eso está genial. Nuevos. ¿Qué? No podemos tener tanta gente. Holy. What? ¿Por qué hay tanta gente acá? Holy. ¿Qué pasa? Oh, qué genio. Gracias, Darloto. Gente, muchas gracias por haberme elegido para darle esta información, por haber apreciado esto conmigo. Vamos a traducir todo el QA de Chris y Sigrid como siempre lo hemos hecho. En caso de que no me conozcan, mi nombre es Crox. Vamos a tener Path of Exile principalmente. Y vamos a estar hablando, cuando terminemos de esto, vamos a ver las patch notes que supuestamente ya salieron o ya van a salir. Y vamos a estar revisando, que me están pasando por acá, el reward del trickster y los nuevos skills. Todo eso lo vamos a estar viendo. Todo eso lo vamos a estar viendo. ¡Wow! Hay un montón de cosas. Gracias, Darloto. Síguelas pasando que ahorita las voy a chequear. ¿What? ¡Qué locura! ¿Cómo hay tanta gente? ¿What? Holy. Pone raid, no me he hecho raid ni nada. Ok, here we go. Voy a acomodarme.
G'day folks, Ziggy D here, welcome back Exiles. Chris, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Excellent to have you back for some Q&A action after some very big announcements. Firstly though, super exciting news about ExileCon returning next year. It's actually a kind of a, I don't know if it was the same for other people, but it was kind of an emotional announcement because that was such a beautiful time for us last ExileCon, and you know, it's been a hard few years I think as well. So it hits kind of extra hard. What led to the decision to organize a new ExileCon now?
Okay.
Well, we've wanted to run another one for a while, and it was unfortunate that immediately after the last one, there was the global pandemic and stuff, and that just made it too difficult to organize events, plus all of the safety issues, but things are looking both a bit safer, and
¿por qué se les ocurrió hacer un nuevo ExileCon?
Stuff to talk about, and this kind of fits into the overall marketing plan for Path of Exile 2, is that next year is the year that we start to reveal pretty much everything. We're going to go through every game system, we're going to show all the areas.
Esta es como la recta final para Path of Exile 2.
So much
El siguiente año vamos a mostrar muchísimo.
Like it has evolved to be a bigger thing, and we want to talk about that in detail. And so we're going to start the marketing. Everything's going to debut at ExileCon 2023.
O sea, todo va a debutarse en el siguiente ExileCon.
People can play the basically complete game at that stage. We can announce when the beta date's starting. We can go through panels of all of the things.
Dice que en el ExileCon van a poder jugar el juego completo.
You know, kickstart the marketing and
toda
show people
la base,
other
supongo que todos los
territories.
actos.
I think there's Gamescom, PAX West, and so on, various other places that we can then take that to after ExileCon.
That gives us a pretty firm-ish timeline for PoE2 then, which is very exciting.
We won't be releasing it before July next year, that's correct.
Que no lo vamos a estar
holding our breath,
sacando antes de julio del próximo año.
And that was like such a huge reveal then, but a lot of what was revealed has kind of leaked its way in games since then. So I imagine that if you've got a whole new ExileCon of stuff to show, then, you know, How much more progress has there been made since then?
Yeah. Well, don't get your hopes up. We're not announcing another new sequel. Like the ability to announce Path of Exile 2 on stage was a surprise that was amazing. But we're not announcing a Path of Exile 3, obviously. This is
o sea, ¿qué tanto pueden anunciar la siguiente? Dice, bueno, no se emocionen, no vamos a sacar otra secuela de Path of Exile.
Immediately coming out after ExileCon, like the next one in the chain.
Pero
I mean,
hay muchísimo que
headlines, just be like, forget about Path of Exile 2. We're going straight to PoE 3. Make headlines.
Okay.
How cold is it in Auckland in July, by the way?
Todo
That's
eso lo voy a ver,
winter
sí.
for you Northern Hemisphere folks.
It's not too bad actually. I mean, I'm in a t-shirt today, right? Like it's pretty mild. It's not like the frigid suburbs of Melbourne or wherever you guys are. But seriously, for people in the Northern Hemisphere, I understand that your winters involve things like snow. We don't get that here. It's pretty much like 8 to 25 degrees C, you know, depending on what day it is.
Están hablando
and
acerca del
it's not too
clima
bad.
en Nueva
There are
Zelanda.
lots of good things to see in New Zealand in the winter. Like there's a really good ski, you know, season going on at the same time in
De que
the
el
cold
clima está
parts of
bien.
New
Sé
Zealand,
que
but in Auckland
el
it's no
invierno
problem
es de
whatsoever.
8 a 15
we feel
grados
that having
en
a
Nueva
convention
Zelanda.
during winter is not a
Increíble.
big
Pensé que era
logistical
mucho
issue.
más frío.
Great. But yes,
Okay.
don't forget, don't bring your, board shorts and singlet shirts. Bring some warm clothes. And make some
Ahora voy a
considerations
agradecer
if you're
todos
cosplaying
los
as well.
subs y-
I was originally planning a
y
Temple
follows.
Mist
No se
Creation
preocupen.
cosplay, but I'm going to have to change my plans, I think. So, Lake of Kalandra is the new league this time around, and the mirrored lakes look incredible. I love the basalt columns rising out and the reflection
Estéticamente
of
se ve
the
hermosa Lake of
clouds and the
Kalandra, que
sun
le
and
gusta
stuff on
eso
the
mucho
water.
a
Is there
Chiquití.
some like new graphical tech here, or is this just finding some creative new ways to use
Es
what you've got?
nuevo,
Well, the great
cosas
thing about the way
gráficas.
we're developing Path of Exile 1
o
and 2
es
is we
solamente
get
algo más
basically
creativo?
the PoE 2 engine and PoE 1 that we can use as we see fit. And so that means when we wanted like surface reflections for the lake,
Okay.
we just found
Dice
an
que
engineer
la
and
cosa
said,
es que
how hard
algo
would this be?
importantísimo de
And the
Path of
answer
Exile
was
2 es que
one
a
day.
veces
And
podemos
so
usar
it's really
el motor
helpful that we
gráfico de
have,
Path of
like, a
Exile 2 en
world-class
Path of
team of
Exile 1.
graphics engineers working on iterating. Even though
Por
we're not
ejemplo, el
using most of the
reflejo
capabilities in
es de
PoE
Path of
1,
Exile 2.
when we need to, we're definitely able to.
Y cuando la necesitamos,
Kalandra's such a
podemos
mythical
hacerlo.
figure in PoE too as well. So like to do an expansion dedicated to her is a big decision, I guess. But without spoiling too much of her story, of course, because I understand you don't want to spoil too much right now. But how did you arrive at like the theme and flavor for this expansion? Like, it's a
Sin
lake,
spoiler mucho la
you
historia,
choose a-
¿cómo es que llegaste a
We
decir
wanted to
que este era el
explore
tema de la
Kalandra for a
expansión?
while, and this is a perfect opportunity because it both fits the lore that we've built up for her, and also mechanically works really well with the out of area builder, complicated set of encounters kind of thing. The theme of her or the lake being able to reflect various aspects of Ray class, fitting in with the mirror theme, and also fitting in with the fact that you're choosing encounters, many of which are League content that players have played before with a bit of a twist on it. It helps kind of justify the fact that you're, fighting breaches and that kind of stuff, not just arbitrarily. It's
Está hablando de
because
que
she and the lake are intentionally
simplemente
able to
encajaba
actually manifest
porque
stuff from elsewhere in Rayclass.
Todo esto de
Speaking of,
que
like, this
todo se
zone
refleja
building
tiene
concept,
sentido,
this
aparte
seems
de
like
que
a pretty,
teníamos mucho
natural
lore
evolution
pensado
of,
alrededor de
Synthesis
Kalandra
is map-
y
custom map
queríamos
building, which I'm very
que
excited
fuese
to
una
see
liga
a
que fuese
expansion on
complicada
that
y
concept.
desafiante y
But you don't
simplemente
need to
encajó
collect a
perfecto
bunch
en
of
esto que queríamos hacer.
physical things this time. How's your approach to designing League content like this changing?
Well, we see this one as similar to Synthesis, similar to Incursion as well, because you're building an area, and we like to think that we've learned from mistakes we made in the past, which may not be the same mistakes that Twitch chat would call out that we've been making, but we have certainly improved how we're doing it. Also, another aspect here is that the difficulty scaling, in this case based on Manhattan distance depth from the origin when you're playing, that is similar to what we were doing in both Delirium, where there was difficulty based on
dice
distance
que
from
la
origin,
dificultad de cómo
and
escalan las
also
cosas
with Sentinel, where you've got empowerment
mientras más
scores
lejos
based on a
estés
bunch of stuff.
del
So we've
punto de
learned
partida
various ways of juicing up the risk and
al
reward together
exterior
and
es
using
como
the
en
same kind of
Delirium.
math
Mientras
here.
más lejos estabas del
But in
espejo,
terms of how
más
we're
difícil era.
iterating on these area building leagues, we're trying very hard to not be too micromanagey with this one. You will notice it's relatively easy. You find your mirror tablet, you put some reflections
estamos
on
intentando
it,
hacerlo
and
que
then you
sea
run it.
lo más,
And you could do a little bit of swapping stuff around to try to make the layout a lot
lo
better,
más
but that comes at the
sencillo
cost
posible, que no
of
sea
not
mucho de
putting a
micromanejo,
reflection on the
que tú puedas
tablet.
simplemente ver
And
la
so
tabla
it
y
in some
decir,
ways
ok,
rewards
esto tiene
less
lógica, voy a hacer esto, voy a
micromanagement than
hacer
usual,
aquello.
just getting in there and killing some monsters. But there'll be opportunities, of course, where people can micromanage it a little bit.
Va a haber oportunidades
that kind
en
of
las
segues into my next
que
question, was
podemos
like, how
hacer
do you
micromanejo
balance something like
de
this
algunas
between
cosas,
people
pero
that
que
wanna
no
just
es lo
kinda jump
fundamental
in
en la
and
liga. La
run
gente que no
some
lo quiere
content
hacer realmente no lo
versus the
tiene que hacer.
people who really want to think about it and min-max it and make it super challenging, that sort of thing.
I think you'll find cases where you want to opportunistically improve your tablet. So if you were to sit there just skipping lots of choices, trying very hard to get the things that move stuff around, you'd take forever to complete a tablet. And maybe you'd get one that's really cool and worth a lot, but you could have done 2 tablets in the same time. But you'll find situations where you realize, if I just swap this entrance location, it juices half the encounters on the tablet by a huge amount. And with one small change, or maybe moving one of the water tiles around to make a really long windy path around it, those kind of things there will let a person who's thinking about it deeply get a lot of extra value from the tablet. But to be completely honest, the way I'm playing it is slap some reflections on there and then go and struggle to complete them. So yeah, it's only really the skilled players who are the ones who are going to want to be juicing it all the way.
That sounds familiar.
Ok. Dice que está diseñado para ser difícil que jugadores como yo, refiriéndose a Chris Wilson,
so in the endgame,
no
there's
vamos a
approximately 11 or 12 blank
hacerlo full
tiles to fill
jugoso,
in. The tablet
como que
size
hacer
varies
el camino
a little bit
completo, pero la
gets
gente
larger as you
que
progress through.
los jugadores
You
más
normally get
experimentados
about 2
probablemente van a
reflections
querer
per map, and so that's
ponerlo full
approximately 5
jugoso
to
y muy
6
full
areas
difícil.
for each lake tablet that you want to build. So this is about twice as often as Incursion, where you'd be getting, you know, an Incursion temple every 11 areas or so. So we've doubled the rate that you're doing that, and these can be saved up. So it's entirely possible to just stack up a giant pile of maps, of lakes, you know, in your stash and come back to them later on if you want to. And of course, they're fully tradable, so if you want to run a lot more lakes, you can just buy them from the trade side, basically.
Dice que es totalmente posible stackear los lagos para simplemente hacerlos todos después, o comprarlos a otras
Well,
personas
whenever you
si
find a
te
mirror
gusta mucho
tablet,
hacerlo.
everyone in your party gets to improve their tablet. So if you're running through an area together, whenever
Si
you get the
consigues una
ability to
tablet
place a
y estás
reflection
en
down,
party,
everyone
cada
can do it
quien
on their
puede
own
mejorar su
tablets. And
tablet
then at the point
individualmente.
that they decide to run the tablet, all the party members can take part in it.
We've already got some questions coming in from chat. Someone asked, how does the edge of the terrain in the Mirror of Kalandra area affect things like projectiles like spark bouncing off them and things like that? Can you like shoot over these areas? Is it like a hard invisible wall?
Que es gracias a POE.
I believe that there is projectile like transmissibility over them, so you can fire projectiles without hitting a hard wall. I'll do the obligatory dev check to confirm that. Okay, good. I know what's going on there. There will be some invisible wall far off into the corners of the lake, but it will not affect your gameplay.
Great. Crowfire asks, does the mirror ring for Kalandra mirror unique rings? Actually, I have my own question about this, so I might as well bring it,
no, es una pregunta acerca del anillo único que mirrorea los ítems.
How does the Kalandra ring work when you have a unique ring like Snake Pit, where in the right slot, you know, it adds an extra chain, but then in the left slot it does something else? Does it mirror the right slot effect, or does it mirror what would happen if it was in the left slot?
It's exactly as though you had another copy of that ring equipped. One way to look at it is, imagine you took a mirror of Kalandra and you applied it to the ring, and then you equipped that mirrored copy.
Ah, okay, there you go.
Ok, está preguntando acerca cómo funciona el anillo y dice que el anillo que copia el otro anillo, dice que funciona exactamente como si copiaras el anillo. Pero está preguntando acerca de, por ejemplo, el Snake Pit, que dice que del lado derecho es una cosa y del lado izquierdo es otra. Si lo copias, ¿son dos derechos o son dos? O es un derecho y un izquierdo, le dice. Es una copia que lo tienes equipada en el izquierdo.
But of course only works on rings.
That's pretty awesome. Aldersberg asks, are there any Lake of Kalandra mechanics timed? Oh, any of the Lake of Kalandra mechanics timed?
Not that I'm aware of. We tried very hard to not have this be a timed league.
Great.
No hay timers en esta liga.
Yeah, right. Things like Delirium or Breach, where if you pop a Breach open, obviously it's going to close with the normal timing that
okay,
league
dice,
has.
Por ejemplo, Delirium o Breach,
specific benefits of going fast, apart
obviamente
from
va a tener su,
you know,
su timer, porque se va a cerrar la brecha o se acaba el delirio, pero el lago como tal no tiene ningún timer, así que se pueden tomar su tiempo.
Nice, I like that.
Me gusta.
Ariador asks, how big is the lake arena, and will non-tanky characters feel claustrophobic? Or dead.
I recommend having another look at the footage that we showed in the trailer and the live stream. Each basically is broken up into approximately screen-sized arenas for each of the encounters. And so you'll be able to see the rough shape from some of the ones we showed there. There's little walkways that come up between them, so it can be seen as a gigantic grid that can be up to 5 by 5 in size, where it's roughly square-shaped islands, except that the shape of each one isn't a square. Like, it can be a square at most, but obviously there's also stuff missing around the outside to make it interesting.
This idea of like a screen-sized arena after arena of all sorts of different challenges feels kind of gauntlet-y. That's I didn't really think of it like that.
Yeah, honestly, they're a lot of fun to play through. It's quite a cool mechanic. Awesome.
I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also really looking forward to the fact that there's new crafting mechanics. You guys have been messing with crafting a lot lately, and I love to see it. The ethereal reflection system looks quite awesome. But you also hinted at some unique bases. Are these separate to the previously announced new minion rings?
Yeah, there's 5 more ring base types that you can get from this league, and basically they crop up in the window when... So there's 2 crafting encounters. The first one will provide you with 2 rings or amulets, and it chooses. And the other one, which is much harder to get and much more valuable, is where you bring your own.
Las que
And
nombraron para
the
los
one that
minions.
provides you occasionally, and of course this is the kind of thing that's proportional to difficulty, like you want to be encountering this in harder encounters.
Okay.
This, in proportion to difficulty, will occasionally generate one of these new base types that have some pretty interesting properties. And I think people should always look at the announcement page that we make, pathofexile.com/Kalandra.
No van a hablar acerca de los nuevos, las nuevas bases de los anillos, pero van a estar anunciando antes de la liga. Estemos pendientes.
See more screenshots of this stuff, including one of those actual rings, so you can see what it does.
Are you doing any more like secret hidden things on those pages? Like you did that one time, I think it was with Scourge or something.
No comment.
That was fun.
Dice que si van a hacer algo secreto en esas páginas, como cuando hicieron en Scourge, que tocabas la cosa y se veía otra parte, dijo, no tengo ningún comentario al respecto. Así que vamos a tener que revisar esa página para ver que esté todo bien.
Rare modifiers?
Y que no nos olvidemos nada.
Scaling mods beyond their regular power levels, like we saw 105 strength on a ring, for example.
Other than the implicits on those new ring-based types, of which there are 5 sets, there are no new rare modifiers that spawn on the items, and that's mostly because getting things like +2 skills and more than 100 life on rings and amulets is pretty bonkers. So, yeah, like if the dream here is that you get one where the drawbacks, like let's say you're playing a resolute technique character and you don't care about crit, and you also get like some damage over time stuff, and those things are reduced.
Okay, está hablando de que no hay nuevos modificadores para los raros. Hay nuevas bases, pero no nuevos modificadores para los raros.
Really blindingly powerful rings and amulets. And the other thing is you actually get because you get a choice of 2, you kind of get 2 shots at it. Like if you're unlucky and the wrong things are picked, they may have also been positive on the other side.
Yeah, that's gonna be some big gambles. I'm looking forward to seeing that. We know ahead of time if you'll be seeing the ethereal reflecting mist, which is the one that lets you bring your own version to craft, or will there just be a stash available there for when you need crafting mechanics like this?
So that one's only available in mirror tablets that are assembled from maps, like in the end game. And because of that, the tablets are itemized, and it's always there for the encounter that has it. And so basically, you will be able to see on a tablet that you're about to run, or one that you're trading for, that it has that. And this means you can either know in advance that it's there, which probably means that tablet commands a higher premium in trade unless you bring an item in, or because you've got your 6 map portals, if you completely forget and you run into this encounter, you can at worst go out using a portal and come back in with the item you need.
Okay, great.
Okay, está hablando de que las tabletas que vayan a tener la cosa de crafteo al final la vas a poder ver y por lo tanto va a tener un mayor precio, la puedes vender a alguien que la quiera usar. Y si te olvidaste, en el peor de los casos puedes salir, buscar el ítem con el que lo vas a usar y volver.
Already mirrored unique, like a ring or amulet?
No, we had a look, and like with recombinators, we wanted to allow crazy, where you can do, well, you've seen what recombinators can do. But we had a look here because this is already doing quite crazy stuff with items, and we've had to disallow it working on mirrored items and influenced items and corrupted items and synthesized jewelry. A lot of cases that would have been totally nuts. Having said that, it can still do some broken stuff with just general rares from the game, like the ability to double half the mods is
dice que no puedes usar la nueva cosa de crafteo que te cambia los valores de los ítems y tal con ítems mirrors o corruptos o con bases de síntesis, porque sería demasiado roto. Y dice que aún así hay cosas que están muy rotas con solamente ítems raros.
Roughly as available as the tainted oil, but you don't need to complete corrupted blighted maps. You can just get it from regular blighted maps. And of course the intention here is that now that there's a lot of mirrored amulets floating around from this crafting system, you don't feel like you're missing out on an anointment by using one of those.
Owler asks, is there a plan for the quarry or glacier run to the tablet mirror and not kill monsters? This is like quarry farming. Mirror, how does the mirror spawn, like the tablet spawn, I should say?
Hay una forma de hacer como quarry farming.
That the mirror tablet does not spawn if you are massively over level for the area, which is what we've done for years with this kind of stuff. That may mean that you can essentially assemble pre-map tablets, right? I'm not sure of the exact, like how punitive we've come down on that, but they won't have the various reflections that can occur in map content. So by playing pre-map ones, you can't itemize them, you have to run them on the spot, because to stress, map and above tablets are itemizable. Campaign ones have to be played as you complete them. So it's not a good way of farming for trade value that way. Having said that, you may be able to still run quite a lot of tablets just for the regular rewards.
Ok, está diciendo de que básicamente no vas a poder hacer quarry farming en esto porque están fuertemente penalizadas. Hay cosas que no se consiguen antes de los mapas. En el mapa se consiguen cosas muy buenas que nada más puedes conseguir ahí. Así que, y no puedes itemizar las que sean antes de los mapas. Así que antes de los mapas, si quieres entrar con la liga, no la puedes itemizar. Por lo tanto, vas a tener que hacerla en el momento, en lugar de guardar las comandas, como en los mapas.
Drifts of white maps to play if you really want an easy encounter.
Speaking of mapping, let's talk about some endgame improvements, in particular the Atlas memory system. What sort of goals did you have with this new system? They seem like they would help with both pacing of the endgame mapping, but also creation of like a story thread to follow between chunks of maps. Not much else is happening potentially.
The Atlas memory stuff is really cool, actually. Like, I'm low-key as excited for this as I am for the actual league itself. It's just that because they're quite endgame and, you know, moderately rare, it's something that only, you know, people that actually get into red maps and stuff will be interacting with, so it's not quite as broadly applicable as the league. But the important part is we promised that every expansion we're doing until Path of Exile 2, we're going to try to make some improvement to the endgame. And so this is an alternate way of playing through content you're familiar with, but with a twist. And we've designed these to be fun, rewarding, and kind of crazy. Like, we're low-key hoping that certain team members don't actually check these out before release so we can release them in a really punchy way, because I get the feeling that the fun police may try to turn a few of them down. So
okay.
An example was I was playing one yesterday where I was asked, can you please try this one and let me know if you think it's over the top? And I join that one, and the theme of it is that there are gangs of rogue exiles that you find like in roaming packs that are trying to hunt you down.
Básicamente,
and the map I played had 100 rogue exiles in it. Now I can't promise it's going to release with that number, but it was certainly nuts. And so,
Esta es la cosa.
I kind of want to emphasize
Dice que
these
hay
aren't
algunas
incredibly common
temáticamente
maps, right? Like you do have to play a bunch of maps to find one. And
extremadamente
because there are a
dementes.
bunch of different
Hay
types
una
of
que se
them
metió que tenía
individually,
100
it's hard to
rogue
actually get the one you
exiles.
want. And so
Y
because of that, we
obviamente el
could
drop
just go
era una
overboard
locura,
with the rewards.
la
Like, we can do
cantidad
crazy
de
stuff.
mobs que
And
está pilando era una
it lets
locura.
us also,
Y era muy divertido.
here's a
Él
key
dice,
thing
estoy
with the new
esperando de
with the
que
endgame
esto,
stuff.
esto salga
You have to juice your
y que
atlas to get
algunos
full
miembros del
content.
equipo
And that means
no
that
lo
if you want
agarren.
to try out
Y se
what does
refirió
it
a los
like
miembros
to
como
have
que
some
la
silly
policía
breach
de
stuff going on, you have to
diversión
go and
no
specialize your
vaya
atlas in breach, and that
a hacer
requires a
cambios
bunch
de
of
estos y que
respecking.
simplemente salga
With
así.
Atlas memories, you can just go and find a breach memory, and that's essentially fully juiced for the most part. Like, obviously it varies from one to one, but our goal here is you are not missing out on anything by not specializing because your Atlas doesn't apply to it. And so you get some pretty nuts stuff going on.
Dice que,
some of them make you feel like a god power-wise, like there are ones who are entirely about some cool thing happens to you and you get to go and experience what that's like. You'll see some situations you don't normally see otherwise. There's some really cool stuff in here I kind of don't want to spoil because I'm looking forward to the moments on Twitch streams where people find these that everyone's like, what is happening here?
Right.
Yeah, and of course it's a good opportunity to explain the backstory of NPCs, right? Like an example is one of the people here who has Atlas memories. In fact, I can talk about who has them. In this set of Atlas memories, it's Carrick and Alva and
memorias está hablando.
Einhar and Nico are the four that we went with, and this means we can do more in the future with other NPCs. But everyone loves Einhar and his craziness, and his interaction with these things that he barely understands himself, but certainly wants to make friends with all the beasts in, is quite cool. And for someone like Carrick, for example, he's running the military side of the Atlas exploration, and he's got a vast backstory of what happened leading up to his, ability to have this role at the moment. So this explores a few of the things he's done.
Las memorias están hablando como que en nivel de lore van a ser muy explicativas acerca de cómo los personajes llegaron a donde estaban. Por ejemplo, Kirak ahorita es el que lidera la milicia de lo que es ahora Orieth. Y esas memorias te van a ayudar a entender de cómo las cosas que él tuvo que lidiar para poder llegar ahí.
Synthesis is actually quite important canonical Atlas lore to a large extent.
Yeah.
And, it's not off the cards to bring Synthesis back. Like, us doing Lake of Kalandra doesn't mean we're not going to potentially do that. It's just that these leagues happen to be moderately similar, so it does scratch the itch a bit, but in a much more accessible way.
Dice que no han descartado traer de vuelta síntesis, y aunque esta casualmente se parezca mucho a síntesis, no significa de que eso la están descartando o van a asegurar de que van a traer síntesis de vuelta. Dice que canónicamente síntesis es muy importante, así que no es algo que simplemente van a descartar del juego.
Trivially just say, look, here are multiple Atlas trees and so on. In principle, this idea is not something we're in opposition to, right? Like, if people want trade to be a lot easier, we'll sit there on our little throne and tell them in detail about how wrong they are. But for this, we sympathize with the concept that people want to have multiple Atlas trees because they're running multiple characters in that league, or they want to have different loadouts and so on. But there are no changes at this stage related to it. It's something we'll keep discussing.
The Atlas memories give all of their maps for free. You can like craft them in their little window and everything, which seems like a nice buff to map progression. Sustain's not really too hard these days, but still getting those initial unlocks is good. Do these count as like your Atlas completion when you do these maps?
Yes. I should note, though, they only spawn in quite high-tier maps, and they are quite valuable. So you're probably going to have large completion by the time you get them. This is not a thing where you're completing your white maps with it. Like,
dice que las memorias
I forget the
aparecen
exact tier they kick in at, but it might be like tier 14, for example.
Y
Like a
que
red map
es algo que probablemente cuando las empiezas a obtener, ya vas a tener gran parte de tu Atlas completado. No obstante, también te completan el Atlas. O sea, si tú haces una memoria en un mapa que no tienes, te va a contar como si completaste el mapa.
Completing them. Now, I haven't actually fact-checked that. That's more of a, this is how it's meant to work. And so, you know, we'll confirm. Like, we'll announce if it is not going to work like that. But my understanding is it should do.
All right. Do the memories like avoid each other on the physical Atlas? And does that mean you can do some weird like memory blocking or something like that by applying multiple memories?
We looked into that, but instead we made it so that they can fully overlap each other. You can apply multiple memories to exactly the same starting map if you want to. They can go on exactly the same path. I mean, they probably won't because they snake randomly. And again, to emphasize it, you should expect these to not be particularly easy to get. Like, yes, people will have multiple running at once occasionally, but they probably had to trade to get those. It would be rare for a person to have multiple concurrently going based on naturally finding them.
Okay. How do you get them, by the way? Are they just a random drop?
Yep, they drop. Not often.
Yep.
Okay, now expectations are set.
Okay, dice las memorias simplemente
what
caen,
happens if you
pero
fail?
después tradear.
Can you fail, I guess? The Atlas memory map things.
I mean, you can certainly run out of portals, but you can still play the next one in the sequence. So it gives you your entitlement of having the ability to try to go for the rewards of each one. Now, if you do fail out and don't have any portals left, or you die in hardcore, you're not getting the drops that you would from the rest of the encounter, obviously, so that sucks. But yeah, technically you can still go and play the harder ones, but I don't see how you're going to do any better at the harder ones in the sequence because they ramp up a lot.
Ok, dice que las memorias, si tú fallas una en la cadena, puedes seguir haciendo las otras. El tema es que cada una es más difícil que las demás. Por lo tanto, si tú fallas en la primera, él dice, sí, puedes intentar la segunda, pero la segunda es considerablemente más difícil que la primera. Así que si fallaste en la primera, no creo que puedas hacer la segunda.
Right? Yeah. So less so for Arch Nemesis, but for Harvest and Beyond, there were changes related to the passives. I don't think we released the Atlas tree before release. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Para Harbinger y
so either way, it's
Harvest,
changes in
hay
line
cambios
with
en el
the theme of
Atlas.
what we've been doing with these leaks.
Pero todavía no
So
los
it's
han
not too
sacado.
surprising.
Okay.
Así que lo van a sacar durante esta semana.
Ordeals, the ultimatum boss fight. Yeah, it's back. It's created from difficult endgame Val content was the terminology. Is this like Val temple maps or is it something else?
We want people to work it out. Like, it's a variety of stuff. So to be clear about how this works, you do several pieces of content, you get some pieces that you can put together, like making Harbinger Uniques. You place them next to each other in the inventory. And it's, you know, go play some Val content, see what drops, post it on Reddit, you know. It won't be too hard to work out.
It's gonna be like a new fragment set or something for these. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Hicieron cosas en las versiones VAL.
Probably be in the patch notes that we're posting as soon as we finish talking, so people won't have long to wait.
Así que va a haber nuevo lore y nuevas cosas interesantes en las
like some sort of
partes
creation
VAL.
process here. Does that mean we can influence the roles on the map in any way, or are those random and we get what we get?
It spawns random rolls, but it's corrupted, so you can't influence it. So that means if you want to try to get good mods on it, you'll have to, of course, complete said Val content many times.
All right. On new and rebalanced uniques now, we asked about the ring, so I can skip that one, but is the lower drop rate of uniques global, or is it specific to the newly
La
buffed
reducción
uniques?
de drop de los únicos es global
from specific bosses
o es específico de
So it doesn't affect guaranteed
algunas cosas.
boss drops. It is a global change, but we've gone through and reassessed the rarity of each
Es un,
unique.
es un
we've kind of
cambio
taken the
global,
old system,
pero
put it to one side,
los
gone
bosses
through
que
every
dropean
unique and said,
únicos,
why is this one quite rare? We should have it be common, and so on and
ese,
so on.
ese
And
simplemente
overall, this means that you are
van a
finding
seguir
fewer
iguales.
uniques per hour that you
O sea,
play.
Baben sigue dropeando sus,
But the
sus
difference
únicos,
between
en
the
otras
uniques
palabras.
is quite
Pues,
staggering.
ese tipo de
Like,
cosas.
I would much rather find one item per time period that I can actually use or has some trade value, rather than, and hypothetically, a bit more than one item, which is probably useless. And so it does feel quite different now. And yeah, no one likes to hear the drop rates have been reduced, but the game was really spamming you with uniques, and it's probably gone over the top. And that's because we don't post in the patch notes every time we implicitly increase the drop rate of uniques in the past. We just happen to increase it too much.
When you make a change like this, do you think, people are going to have less alks? And then like change the drop of alks or something? Or
There were other currency items I was focusing on this league.
Indeed.
Okay.
So you've got a long list of
Estaba
uniques
hablando
getting
acerca del
changed
drop rate
here,
de los
but as
únicos y
mentioned,
dijo que los mejoraron
there are
bastante,
just
algunos son más
many more
comunes,
in the
otros son
game,
más raros,
certainly now.
pero que la
I
intención
think
era de
whenever
que
you
cuando
do,
te
like, a
consiguieras
big list of
sean
buffs like this
útiles,
and
en
the
lugar de que
buffs
te consigas un
themselves are pretty
montón y que
substantial for
todos
the
sean
most
inútiles
part.
para ti.
People can feel a bit sad about whatever ones didn't make the cut, for example. I don't think I saw Voltaxic in that picture. Sad. Is there any plans to give like similar treatment to more uniques in the future then?
Yeah, we will be. We plan to iterate on more uniques and other expansions. We're just not sure of the timing of it. I mean, we've done unique
Dice que
revamps in the past. This was an
iteraron un
expansion
montón de
where we
únicos, pero hay
happened
unos
to
que
have
simplemente no
balance
llegaron a hacerlos,
capability lying around in the
pero
unique department that we could use for this,
pero
and
claramente
felt
los
like the
tienen en
right time
mente
for it.
como para
So yeah,
iterar
expect more
sobre ellos más
improvements, but we're
adelante.
not promising
Por
we'll do
ejemplo,
every other unique in
Voltaxic,
the next one.
el arco
People
no
want to know
llegó
what
a
the
esta liga.
process is for creating unique items for Uber Pinnacle bosses, like their design, working with members of the community, and how that's all going.
Okay.
We had one new one this league, it looked like.
We have been running a league launch race boss kill event thing for the last couple of leagues, and the way that that works is that historically for the last two, people who were the first to kill all of the Uber Pinnacle bosses got ranked in order and then had the ability to design unique items. And that's resulted in some really cool stuff, like the Zizaran gloves that are in this expansion and a bunch of ones on the last
Okay, está hablando acerca de la carrera y las recompensas
The
que van a
first
tener.
problem was that the same people are having to make the same uniques, and while they have won the competition multiple times, the same people are getting to make multiple uniques, which isn't a problem from a fairness point of view because they're winning the competition, but it's a problem when Ben gets to make like half a dozen or something like that because he will run out of ideas after a while. In addition, these content creators, and they're often content creators who are winning these because of skill and so on, often don't have the time to actually fully engage with our design team in the relatively time-consuming process of making these because there's other things happening. And so we only had one out of a backlog of I think 6 or 7 pending uniques actually make it in. And so we're going to be putting a bit of a deadline on it where the creators who still have uniques pending there, we're going to release them in the next expansion with or without their input. Ideally, they will... We're contacting them, basically, but yeah, ideally you've got months to actually go and get it, the process finished, but we are planning to actually release these because the players want their uniques and we're going to give them. So the earlier and faster you can work with us, the more stuff we get in. Now, we will be running another race event.
Salseo, mira, básicamente es esto. Dice que el problema de cómo las carreras están recompensando a los jugadores es que algunos jugadores, por ejemplo, Ben, ya tiene que hacer como 6 únicos, porque básicamente está ganando todo. Y, ¿sabes? Si tuviese que diseñar 1 o 2 no hay problema. Pero trabajar con estos creadores de contenido que también tienen unos horarios muy ocupados, los hace bastante complicado. Entonces dice que Chris dice que va a tener que sacar algunos únicos sin el input por completo de los que ganaron el derecho de hacer ese único, porque es difícil conseguir el tiempo para simplemente trabajar en eso.
Based on like the biggest ignite or poison on an enemy. This seems very good for like ignite builds or big single hit poison builds. It doesn't seem very useful for
ya
most
vamos a ver
poison
el
builds,
post en Reddit de Ben.
Scale by stacking a lot of smaller poisons. Is this the case, and is that just okay?
Yeah, the goal here wasn't to just say all poison builds have an extra thing that they have to stack on in addition to everything else. The goal here was to enable builds to exist that use single big poisons and ignites. So we're trying to open up more space here rather than just buff an archetype.
Oh, that's true.
Está hablando acerca del nuevo skill que te permite poner un poison muy fuerte. Y dice que la idea de los poison siempre era poner un montón de poison. Y dice, sí, lo sigue haciendo. La cosa es que queremos abrir el arquetipo para que haya la posibilidad de hacer un poison muy fuerte, así como la posibilidad de poner un ignite muy fuerte.
Wow, so all the uniques are getting spoiled as soon as I finish the Q&A.
Yeah.
Let me just stall
Todo-
for a while longer.
We could
Todos los
stop right now and people would
únicos-
have that information, but instead we're going to keep going through the question.
Todos los
I'm not
únicos
gonna
los van a revelar ahora
until
mismo
next
apenas
time.
terminemos.
I feel really
Alright.
bad for the person that has to write up all the changes if I was wrong and they aren't listed there and then the community expects them and that's their weekend gone.
Sorry,
Y dice que espera que no se equivoque porque si se equivocó quiere decir que la
so the
persona
new
que los
shock
escribió no
skills
los ha
seem very
escrito y va a
cool.
perder todo su fin de
They
semana.
feel a bit like PoE 2 skills. I've been noticing this a lot lately, where we will have a lot more socket and support freedom in the future. I've noticed this is a bit of a trend with new skills feeling a lot more like combo pieces and
Está
like,
hablando
it
acerca
really
de
feels like you're
Puedes
butting
Exile
up
2.
against the limitations of
skills.
the current socket system. Do you feel that when you're designing skills at the moment?
Yeah, we are certainly designing content for PoE 2. I mean, like, this league is designed so it could appear in PoE 2 if we decide to. We're trying very hard to make sure that we are juicing both games at the same time, and that's why from a quality point of view we want them to be.
Dice que están diseñando mucho contenido con la idea de que mucho de ese llegue a Puedes Exile 2. Por ejemplo, muchos skills se sienten como son combos, como que este va con este, ¿no? Y obviamente en Puedes Exile vamos a estar, nos quedamos cortos con la cantidad de gemas que vamos a tener, mientras en Puedes Exile 2 vamos a tener muchísimas gemas más disponibles por simplemente cómo funciona el sistema de gemas en Puedes Exile
Like I
2.
said, we've got so many of these like combo piece feeling skills that are just so hard to fit in builds at the moment. So
Well,
really
they'll
looking
find
forward to that.
places. Like our team are very
yeah.
excited about these.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y sí que yo le pregunté como que no se hacen sentir como que mal usarlos porque no hay espacio y que le dicen no, hay espacio, nuestro team ha investigado al respecto y vamos a poder hacerlo.
Other games where they've had like a mechanic that you debuff an enemy with so that they take more damage and the entire gameplay ends up revolving around them. Is this something you're like concerned about here?
So in order to get a good shock value, you don't want to put it in a 2-link with some random skill to shock enemies. You want to actually like increase that damage and put it in a 4-link. And so then you're facing the opportunity cost of every other relevant support gem or utility skill you could have in that slot. So, I mean, it will certainly have its place in trying to make good shocks, but it's not just something you put onto every build just as an afterthought because, there's limited sockets going on there.
Yeah, right now, like you have the option, I guess, of doing that, but it usually comes at a pretty big opportunity cost. Like skitterbots, for example, reserving something is a pretty frequently used one. So I guess right now, if it's like it's hard to get enough power in a build that doesn't really make sense, it's not going to be a problem. I guess it might be something you might have to review in PoE 2 when people can throw a 6-link at it, even if they're like a melee build or something where it doesn't make much sense otherwise.
Yep, fair enough. I'm avoiding commenting on the availability of 6 links in that content, but people should know the assumptions.
I mean, as far as everyone's concerned, at
Sí que
this
Dile
point,
está
we're all
dando un poquito
getting
más duro
a
con el
6-link
respecto
on every single
al
skill,
tema
not a
de
problem.
Instantly.
de cómo
on
algunos
the-
skills que proponen que tienen que ver mucho con shock, lo difícil que va a ser ponerle 6 links a esto porque va a
Well,
costar,
speaking of 6 links, we've got the
obviamente son
return of
6
Tainted
links que le estás poniendo en ese skill
Fusings, coming
para que
this
tenga
league.
el
I
uso que debería
really
tener.
liked those for,
Y que Wilson dice,
easier
bueno,
unique
probablemente sea
availability
justo
on
en Puedes Exile
corrupted
vas a
items,
tener más
like a
espacio para
awesome
hacerlo.
stepping stone.
No obstante, no voy a hacer mucho más
glad to see you
comentarios
guys
porque el
brought that
equipo me ha
back,
dicho
but
que
is
ha
it
estado bien.
something you wanted to avoid, or because they didn't stay around for a while, but now they're coming back?
Ahorita vamos a
What are your
chequear todas las
thoughts on,
pasivas,
that
todo
and the
eso, todo eso lo vamos a ver.
availability of 6 links in general?
We
Hay mucha información.
believe the rate that we've reintroduced them in is going to be safe because they're moderately scarce. It's certainly, they're not dropping all over the place, so it should be fine.
All right, let's talk about the league revamps, in particular Arch Nemesis. I'm very excited to see big changes on the Arch Nemesis side
Okay,
of things.
Arch Nemesis.
The risk of putting it bluntly, I think Arch Nemesis implementation last league was not met with a lot of love for many, and it didn't really feel like an improvement to the game overall for some. How was your
¿Está hablando
reaction to
acerca
the
de Nemesis?
implementation of Arch Nem, and and the community's reaction to it?
So I played at League launch last time, which is relatively rare because usually we have raging server fires and that kind of stuff that I get to work on. But this time I got to play some Path of Exile, and I got all the way to maps without really feeling any problems with the Arch Nemesis stuff. And so I was a bit like, I had some cognitive dissonance with the feedback, but our design team agreed with the feedback. Our design team
Ok,
looked
Chris
at
Wilson
the
está
builds
diciendo
people
algo que va a
were
molestar a
playing,
muchas
looked at
personas.
the
Él
way
dijo
they
que
were playing,
jugó
went through it and said, yeah,
en
we
el
need to tone
lanzamiento de la
down
liga
some problematic
pasada.
stuff here, which
Y
is
dijo
good,
que
'cause I'm
para
quite
él
glad that
estuvo
design team
bien
were not
Arch
hating.
Nemesis. Dijo que no tuvo
And
ningún
so
problema de que él llegó hasta
we
mapas sin ningún
really feel that
inconveniente.
res in the early
Y
game felt too
sinceramente,
hard relative to res later
yo
on.
también.
And we made a lot of changes to it in response
Salvo
to the
un
feedback,
par
and obviously that
de
stuff we should
cosas
have
que
had
hay
in
unos
there for more
clips por
testing
ahí de
prior
una
to the release.
esencia
But there were
descomunal.
some changes
Pero
specifically
fuera de
around
eso, me parece que
rewards
estaba
that we
bien.
wanted to do,
No
but weren't
obstante,
fast to
Chris
implement,
dice
so we
que
waited
el
till
equipo
319. That's why it's one of the revamped leagues,
de Balance
despite
dijo que
being so
estaban de acuerdo
recent.
con el feedback
And it
y
was the
que
ability
iban
to
a
go through the
ponerse
entire
a...
game and make sure that the rate that you were encountering
hicieron hacer los
res was
cambios.
appropriate
Mira,
to how difficult
hagan
they are,
zoom
and
en
then
esa
making sure that when you do
pantalla
have a
que
hard
está
rare
detrás de
fight,
Chris. Alguien está
you don't just
trabajando
get
en
a
algo
bad
y quiero
judge,
saber
you
que está
actually get some
trabajando.
really good stuff going on. And so now people will hopefully look forward to
Necesito
finding
zoom,
monsters with
los
multiple
binoculares
Arch Nemesis
para
mods so
ver
that they
que están
may get
trabajando en
really
eso.
broken conversions.
¿Eso es Puedes?
How aggressive was this reduction in rare monsters applied overall?
It varies. In some cases, there were no changes. Like, for example, the monsters in the actual just areas you walk through are generally relatively low. Like, you can play a map and only encounter a few rares if you haven't juiced it, you know, with all balance values, and that's left unmodified. Of course, you could, if you're lucky, encounter more. But the leagues spammed the ever-loving, like, there were some leagues that gave a lot of rare monsters, Ziggy. Like, we had to turn some down like 6 or 8 times in some cases. And so that's making a big difference. Now you actually have some ability to focus on what mods you're playing against, as opposed to the screen being full of, you know, yellow 1 frame per second death. So yeah, there has been a big reduction for some leagues.
Chris Wilson dice de que hicieron serios cambios acerca de cómo funcionan los monstruos raros, porque dice que hay algunas ligas que tiraban una cantidad obscena de monstruos raros y que eso estaba mal, porque pasaban que en una frame estabas vivo y en la siguiente no estabas vivo. Entonces dice que balancearon todo alrededor de esas ligas para que se sientan bien, pero no se sienten como que se quedaron sin mobs, pero se siguen sintiendo como que, ok, aquí hay más que en otras partes. Y que los monstruos raros vas a hacer como que, ok, ahora sí puedo jugar alrededor de los mods que tenga este mob de acá.
There you go, chat.
Eso no va a ser... Oh, shit, acabo de pensar algo. ¿Eso no es un nerf al Headhunter de nuevo?
How does this change the balance between base gameplay reward and specifically reward mechanics? So I guess now, like, when a rare spawns from a league mechanic, it potentially is dropping its new reward system, whether it's like a bundle of maps or uniques or something like that as well.
Yeah, we want it to be consistent across both. We've had a problem long-term in Path of Exile that isn't fully solved, where the base game has one difficulty and league content has a different difficulty. Like, if you were to fight a monster in an expedition, a white monster, and look at how much life it has compared to just a random zombie walking on the beach 1 screen over from the base game, there's a pretty big difference there. And we haven't, like, addressed that life difference here. It's quite a large change to go and normalize all that, but we do want it so that league content is appropriately rewarding for its difficulty, but not to the point where you just don't want to play the base game.
Está hablando acerca de que tienen un serio problema con el tema de las ligas. El contenido de las ligas es considerablemente más difícil y también mucho más recompensante que el juego base. Y eso para ellos es un problema, porque puede llegar un momento en que la gente no quiera nada más hacer la liga y no el contenido base.
Better items than normal. Each additional Arch Nemesis mod drops more and more items in a multiplicative kind of stacky way. This, of course, all stacks with your player rarity and quantity, which does matter a lot more than before. Then some of the mods have conversions that occur, and those conversions can stack together. And the goal is that player rarity and quant both affect all of these conversion things. And this means we have internal calculations now where for monster drops like this, your player rarity can actually convert currency items to better currency items.
No, el contenido base está hablando de decir mapas y cosas así, o sea, lo base, lo que no es una liga.
Internally. And so we are trying very hard to make sure that killing rares is a very rewarding experience. To
están trabajando fuertemente de que los raros se sientan muy recompensantes, pero para que sea justo de que sean difíciles.
If there's only one of them on the screen, I'm okay with that. The problem was more like when I couldn't see what was going on, when there was like 10 rares there, and there's a billion poison things trying to bonk me. So I like this. I like what you're doing overall to try and get Arch Nemesis to fit into the game a lot better. However, I'm still a bit concerned that like many of the specific modifiers or combinations of modifiers that are just not that fun to have in the game might still be a problem. Like for example, the vast array of different styles of effects that slow your character down, except for tricksters, I guess.
Está hablando acerca de que, ok, todo eso está muy bien, pero yo creo que algunos modificadores, la combinación de algunos modificadores se va a sentir simplemente mal. Como por ejemplo todos los personajes que simplemente eslovean, todos los modificadores que eslovean a tu personaje.
But what's worth noting here is, with the way that magic monsters were working until 3.19, they both had the full range of crazy on-death kind of spammy stuff, and often had a different mod each. And so the magic monster changes here are quite impactful, because it means A, there's one mod shared between the group of them, so you read what the mod is and then deal with that mod, and if that means it's on death, you're dealing with some on death on this group, but then you don't have to worry about it on other groups. And it also means that we went through and greatly reduced the amount of stuff like on-death modifiers that you get on magic monsters. A lot more of them are just, I'm harder because I do fire damage kind of stuff now. And so that means that you're not running into the stuff as
Ok, dice
completely
que
frequently as you
los
were in the
monstruos
past,
mágicos,
especially with
particularmente
the
los que
reduction
tiraban más
of,
cosas,
the number of rare monsters.
cuando morían hacían algo, explotaban, tiraban
Chat really
pozos,
wants to talk
pozos
about
de mierda en el
melee,
piso y
so I
tal.
guess we're gonna pause the
Eso va a
current topic
reducirse
I'm talking on chat.
consistentemente,
Here you go,
considerablemente,
I
perdón.
gotcha.
Y
They want to talk about melee, but I'm not really
sobre
sure
todo
what
de
the
que si
specific
aparece en
questions are. So do you
un
have any
pack, es
generic
muy
comments
poco probable que
on
aparezca en
the
otro
state of
pack.
melee in Path of Exile currently, and then maybe I can read some specific questions from chat instead of just spamming melee.
So my interpretation of what chat's asking is that they feel that they would like to see buffs to melee skills. Of
Me
which
too, yeah, I figure.
Of which we haven't included specific reworks in this expansion, but what I'll do, and this is not a promise, so do not put melee on your internal list for 320, is I will make sure that when we're having our design meetings for 320, this is brought up. There are pros and cons for this, and I was recently having a look at how they're doing melee skills in PoE 2, and you will love that. As much of that as we can get into PoE 1, we will try to do, but bear in mind, one of the major things they have there is an entirely new animation system that lets them do really punchy, cool stuff. And so the future is very bright for
Chris
melee.
Wilson está diciendo de que entiendo de que muchas personas están hablando acerca de melee y que quieren buff a melee, pero dice que voy a hacer lo mejor posible para que por favor en la siguiente expansión venga algo que tenga que ver con melee, pero no les puedo asegurar nada, pero voy a hacer lo mejor posible de eso. No obstante, yo he visto lo que ha pasado, lo que está pasando en Path of Exile 2. Y les va a encantar. Van a amar cómo son los skills melee en Path of Exile 2. El futuro es muy alegre, muy brillante. Pues básicamente puedo asfixiarlo, don't worry.
It didn't sound bad to me. Maybe I wasn't wanting to be angry that day.
I think the cleave thing is funny because I think what it does is it's not so much that like buffing cleave's radius is a problem and that it's bad, but it highlights for people the idea that it's like, yeah, melee's a problem. Here you go. Here's a little fix, and it's like a breadcrumb. So I think for people that's what it's indicative of.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So people want to see. People want to see the giga buff that makes them lose their mind.
It is hard when you put together a list of changes to understand that morning the meme that people are going to want changing is melee, and then when you throw a small melee thing out there, it wasn't big enough. Like it makes us look, short-sighted and not reading the room or whatever. It's hard to know 100% what the room wants, and we kind of feel that if we were to poll the community of, hey, next expansion, what do you want us to do, that wouldn't necessarily align with what we believe the game needs for the bigger picture of what we're trying to solve, because we are trying to work like a few leagues ahead in our head about where things are.
I mean, it's
Chris Wilson acaba de dar una respuesta que es en el estilo de... O sea, si hubiésemos preguntado acerca de qué quería la comunidad, puede que gran parte de la comunidad no hubiese querido lo que nosotros queremos acomodar el gran esquema de Path of Exile, lo que sentimos que es lo más importante. Así que a veces dar un pequeño paso en la dirección que la comunidad quiere puede ser visto como que no estamos leyendo bien el cuarto. Hay muchas cosas en la pantalla atrás, sinceramente.
There's still going to be a little bit of nostalgia for some of the old bosses. Will we see them again in some form or anything like that? Or are they just gone for good?
They're gone for good, sorry. They're literally bandits. Like, we made Beyond in like 1.2 or 3, and we had like 20 people in the company at that stage. Like, we have 20 people in QA now, basically. And we, with a 3-month cycle or whatever we're working to, it was very hard to get that content ready in time. And this is where we're doing 2 challenge leagues at a time. Like...
Sí. Estaba acerca de Beyond. Del dolor.
I forget what was with Beyond. Rampage was with Beyond. So we had to work on 2 leagues at the same time. I understand they were smaller then. But when we needed monsters, the answer was take something, paint it red. And that held up for 8 years. Like, it's kind of embarrassing. Yeah, we're not going to be using those assets again, unfortunately.
No van a usar más los assets de Beyond que acaban de quitar. Sad. Sad Beyond.
Hard mode, cool.
No más use.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
You keep throwing fine. Well, what's going on with hard mode, Chris?
Oh, we're working on that.
Hard mode.
We're working on that.
¿Estamos trabajando en eso?
No promises, but it's coming along.
No hay promesas, pero viene en camino.
When do you think we might hear a little bit more about
¿Cuándo escucharemos un poquito más acerca de eso?
I mean, in the next few months, you're probably going to hear some stuff. We got to make sure it's like good before we release it.
Debemos asegurarnos que esté bien para cuando lo saquemos, los próximos meses vas a ver algo.
It's interesting to see that you've effectively used Scourge to update Beyond. Was this always the plan for Scourge?
No, it wasn't actually always the plan. For a while, we were thinking of removing Beyond, but we worked out that we could fix it up. And we wouldn't remove something just because of its art assets, but we also were unhappy.
El plan fue
Beyond is a funny
actualizar
thing,
Beyond
because when
con
it was
Scourge
initially released as a
y dijo,
hardcore
no,
league,
esa no fue la idea
okay, so
inicialmente.
when it's always on and you want to level and not everyone is great at the game, you have to actually be kind of careful. Beyond has tension. If you trigger too many monsters, you die. And so even like for medium skill level players, they had to be careful to not accidentally have Hast all over the place when they were playing maps. And so my experience playing Beyond way back in the day was kind of fearing it, wanting to engage, like flirting with the edges of it, but often just getting wiped out. And in a hardcore league, that meant a lot of new characters. And then nowadays, where people's clear speed can just deal with Beyond and they're probably not playing hardcore and they can control when it's on and just stack it as a juicing mechanic, it's a totally mandatory juicing mechanic where you just have it on your maps where you want to get a lot of extra monsters and it spawns tons of them.
Okay.
And so it was basically an all or nothing kind of thing.
Dijo
The
que
new version
Beyond,
of it is a lot more well considered.
El-
It's still
el
a
problema
way
de-
of juicing your content and getting extra drops.
de Beyond
but
era
it's
que
done in a way
era
that's a bit
algo que
less
ponías
abusable
encima de
and
todo tu
ideally
jugo
something that
y
people
simplemente
will
tenías que ponerlo.
not feel
O sea, era
afraid of
demasiado
using
bueno
if
como
they-
para no
if they do
ponerlo.
find it
Por lo
challenging.
tanto,
Previously, the way it spawned monsters was
se sentía
very
como que, bueno, si tu
consistently
personaje no
spawn a red,
podía
kind of
manejarlo, te
you
sientes
see
simplemente
those,
mal
like,
porque
dropping
sabes
out
que eso es lo mejor y no lo
constantly.
puedes
Does it
usar.
change the mechanics of
Pero
how that works now?
ahora
Like,
va a ser algo que
I
vas a
understand the bosses were
considerar
replaced
si
with good
quieres tener en
bosses,
el
but
mapa o no quieres tener en el
how does the,
mapa.
like, spawning work now comparatively?
Yeah,
Pero
we've taken that back to the drawing board a bit.
Currency
making sure that the
tainted,
numbers and so on are
ojo.
being tweaked, and I'd recommend people just
Ojo.
try it out. I don't really want to itemize the exact list of mechanical changes behind the scenes. Play the league, see what you think, get some good currency.
It's different. All right. Chad wants to know how they will get the Steam achievement to kill a Backsith now. Some people are big on achievements, Chris.
¿cómo vas a conseguir el achievement de
Go on.
matar a Baxon?
Go on.
De Abaxot.
Do people who already got
Se
it get
fue.
to keep it as like a legacy achievement? How does that work? I don't know how that works.
That is a very good question.
Go on. See you, Chad.
This is why you need hundreds of people in a company, because someone is having to worry about that.
Yeah, I would never think of that.
Hay un logro en Steam de
harvest
matar a
changes.
Baxot
Huge.
y
Huge.
Yeah, this is a good one.
We might just see some players who essentially abandon the mechanic returning to it here, maybe, hopefully. Also, like myself, for example. Also, we got the long awaited change to remove third-party trust trading too. How did these changes come about after all this time?
okay, por ahí cambiaron
We
cosas que
I
tienen
had a few issues.
que
here. The
limitan
first one was the observation that, and this may sound a
que
bit
los jugadores
hyperbolic, but it's also kind of accurate.
hagan intercambios fuera de
you
juego,
would do a
fuera de
sacred
juego.
grove, and you would end up with a bunch of trades, and you would then be forced to, on the spot, either do those. Sorry, you find a bunch of crafts, and you'd be forced to either do those crafts on your items, which involves having some kind of plan for what you're wanting to do, and a whole bunch of understanding, and looking at the wiki, and looking at your path of building, and so on and so
There's a
on.
lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was like 30 in some cases, crafts that you could do. Or trade them with people, because if you walk out of that grove without using the craft, you've lost their value. And so
Wasted.
it's useful for someone, and so you have to go and like hang around seeing if someone wants to scam you today, or you want to pay them, or like it was a complete mess. And then like, I mean, everyone like, likes to hate on TFT, which was serving a useful function for the community, and it's just
El tipo
like,
está
it is
diciendo que
better
bueno,
that
el
that kind of
problema
thing is handled internally in the
el
game
problema de
than not.
Harvest era que
So,
a veces te dan
the other
demasiados
problem we
crafts,
had with
hasta 30. Tú
Harvest
tienes
was that it
que
had
o tener un
dangerous
plan para todos esos
deterministic
crafts
and we feel
previamente
dangerous from the point of view
con
that
muchas
for
cosas que
making the
tenías que
best
tener
items in
en
the game, you
cuenta
often
o
had
podías
to
venderlos, porque
use
si no los
Harvest.
hacías
And this meant that there was a
perdías
system
eso,
that was a real
eso,
pain in
simplemente
terms of it
desperdiciaste todo
dropped
ese
your mapping
valor.
for half an hour
Entonces
and
tú decías,
involves
bueno, me voy a
interaction
quedar por
with other
aquí a hablar con las
humans. And it
personas
was
a ver si
kind
alguien
of
me quieres
mandatory as
cambiar
far as
hoy.
people were concerned for making the best items. And
Y
we didn't like that. And so now it's still powerful. It is significantly more streamlined. You basically just do your grove, pick up your currency that you get now, and think about it later. And at whatever point you're wanting to craft, you have a look to see if you have enough life force. If you don't, you just go trade for some more using traditional trading tools. If you don't like Harvest, previously you had to engage with it.
Dice
Unless you
que-
turned it off. Now you can accumulate that life force, and if you need some more chaos, just trade a pile of it for chaos whenever you need to.
Ok, dice que ahora es mucho más sencillo porque
Right.
simplemente puedes
So you
tradear
have
la fuerza
seemingly,
vital para usar los crafts y
every
de hecho
option
puedes
of
comprar simplemente
crafting
fuerza vital
unlocked at
y
the
usar tu
beginning now.
Harvest,
So you just have to
o
how do you balance
puedes
that
decir,
out
me gusta
for, like,
Harvest
the
pero no
really rare powerful crafts?
quiero
Do you just
usarlo.
have different life
Eso
force
lo puedo
that
vender
you
a
think
alguien,
like
puedo traerlo
for
por
them, or is it
caos
just
usando las
you
formas
balance it based on
tradicionales de
quantity
Puedes Excel.
simply?
So, pinnacle crafts like the exalt crafting require you to kill a Sharpie to get her life force. And so some of the more valuable ones do require you to go through the tier 4 beast, a Sharpie chain in order to get the life force, or trade for it, of course. But we have gone through and made changes to what crafts are available. There are some that are gone. Usually ones that didn't have a purpose anymore. Ones that shouldn't really have existed in the first place. Some things have been moved elsewhere, like the special offerings to the goddess you now get from the labyrinth itself, rather than having to go through harvest to get that.
Las offerings de goddess te dan en el laberinto, en lugar de hacer los harvest.
Stuff comes from the relevant content rather than from
de las cartas.
Yeah, that makes sense.
De las cartas?
Overall, how much has the balance and power of harvest crafting changed for the will the average endgame player want to engage with it now, do you think?
It's still going to be a good way of improving your items, but I will hopefully see that it isn't mandatorily listed on the plan to get every single best item with rare crafting before.
Okay. Dice que es una buena forma de tener más poder en tus ítems, pero no es algo mandatorio para mejorar todos los ítems.
That's now a null exalt, and so you lose a mod before you gain one, and so there's a bit less determinism in it. You can still have good outcomes, but it does involve quite a lot more risk than before for some of those ones.
Frostdata asks what happens to their currently stored crafts that they have at the moment, banked, all their thousands of exalt items crafted.
You should use those now.
Oh, frenzy, let's go.
I believe that you should use them before the league, or before the new league comes out.
Ok, estaba hablando acerca de los crafts que tengas guardados. Deberías usarlos ahora, porque probablemente desaparecen.
All right, have fun, stand place. Will harvest monsters still Omega Barrage me when I click the button, Chris?
The monsters are spawned in staggered waves over a short period now, so it doesn't take long for them to all to be spawned, but they won't spawn physically in the same frame.
Great.
And as I mentioned, we've rebalanced the fights to have fewer rares and better.
Rebalancearon un poco las peleas para que haya menos raros en los monstruos de Harvest.
That's fantastic.
Y que no salgan todos de golpe, sino que salgan como en las cajas, que van saliendo como en una hilera. No salen todos en el mismo frame como antes.
We're seeing a lot of changes to minion builds, from skill rebalancing, necromancer changes, a lot of itemization changes. There's some stuff, really good stuff in there that seems really good, like the itemization stuff I'm really excited about. But some of the other stuff, like necromancer's rework, being met with concern. I'm not really sure about everyone else, but I have a hard time picturing the overall state of things with all of these changes put together. Can you kind of lay it out for us, Chris?
So necromancers are now like other Path of Exile builds. Your build strength is moderately proportional to how good your items are. Before, you could, to some extent, get the skills, level them up, not really care about your items, and still have some degree of confidence.
Dice que el cambio de Necromancer es que es como otras ascendencias en el juego. Tu build es tan bueno como sean tus ítems. Antes podías simplemente agarrar las ascendencias, agarrar los puntos, levelear tus gemas y casi que no te puede importar los ítems que llevas. En cambio, ahora te va a importar los ítems.
We also felt that minion characters were just not good enough. Like, we felt that at the end game, they could be more powerful. And the problem is the way to make them more powerful was buff the skills. But it's one of the things where we wanted them to be better, but we didn't want to buff their skills. And so we've realized that by giving far more itemization options, it's now possible for them to be significantly better.
Dice que los minions ahora pueden ser más poderosos que antes.
It's one of those things where we've taken everyone defaulting from a 7 out of 10, and now they default to a 3 out of 10 like everyone else, but they have the ability to become a 10 out of 10. The other subtlety to it is, previously, the Necromancer and Ascendancy skills were where you got a lot of your power, and we've essentially moved a lot of power now to your items. This means that if you're playing a minion build, you don't have to play a Necromancer, because it's not quite as powerful as before, because the power has been made up elsewhere on items, and other Ascendancy classes get access to the items.
Si ahora vas a jugar un build de minions, no necesariamente tiene que ser un Necromancer.
Still play a minion character.
We're going to scoot things along pretty quickly now, chat, because we are running out of time a little bit. But talking about Exalted and Divine changes.
Exalted and Divine changes. Quiero escuchar esto.
And Divine Shards. Is there anything happening there?
We're not planning to add shards. This is along the lines of the reason why we don't want gold in the game is because we don't want there to be a single homogeneous trade currency that's, you trade 70,000 of these for that item and that's what it's worth. So we're very, very careful to not add shards for the big ticket items that can be easily got. The motivation behind the changes here is that we would like people to be using Exalt more. The ability to actually craft with Exalt would be nice. We all feel that by having Divine be comparatively rarer, then the mods on items actually matter. When you find a unique or a rare with good rolls, that's something which, yes, you can still change it with divines, but it is actually a more important thing. And so it's in line with having wider ranges on some of these uniques that we've revamped. You can find some very powerful versions of them. So we want to make sure that divines aren't quite as common. We really shouldn't have been handing out divines through a vendor recipe in the way that we were, but at least with this change here, we can make sure that it comes, like, we aren't changing the drop rate of any of these. The result is players will not be able to divine their items as much as they would before, and they can exalt their items probably quite a lot more than they could before, due to the fact that the trade value
Dice
won't
que
be so prohibitively high for exalts.
Well,
el
yeah, it makes a
cambio
lot of sense because, like, the
es
order
que
of crafting would be
las
like you
divines
exalt the
van a
item
ser
and
más
then divine
escasas
to
porque
finish
tienen
it
el
off,
mismo
but
drop
that
rate
would
que
the
antes.
reverse way around
Y
in terms
los
of
jugadores
value,
van a
and
tener
the
más
result of
cuidado cómo
exalting
usan las
so
divines. No
valuable
van a
that
tirar tantas
they
divines como
never
antes.
get right click.
Pero va
So
a
do
haber
you
más
think that's going to
exaltes
change
disponibles,
dramatically?
por
Do you
tanto van a
think
tirar
exalt's
más
going to be worth,
exaltes.
like,
Van a usarla
7
más.
chaos or something?
I don't know the ratio and I don't want to speculate, but yeah, I would expect that it's going to change the values of trade for items. But Path of Exile is already good at that and capable of dealing with the fact that the stuff is arbitrary in the first
Patch
place.
notes. Lo leo al final.
Rise QT asks, with
Ahí
divines
está,
becoming
míralo.
a lot more rare, obviously, what's going to happen to divine vessels? And there's a recipe to make those. Are they going to still be very rare, or are they going to be made more common to help?
The recipe's unchanged.
We haven't changed the recipe at this stage.
A very expensive recipe now, potentially. Something to think about, maybe.
Approximately equivalent to... Divines will be worth approximately what Exalts were before in terms of difficulty getting them.
Huh.
Probably a similar value. Oof. 110C divine vessel recipe. Sick. We got some misc questions here. Chat folks ask, confirm that MTXs don't deal damage or pick up items themselves. Yes.
That's correct. Like, the new MTX are exciting because they look like they're going to help you in the gameplay, but they really don't. Right?
¿Puedes
This is
confirmarme
like the best trick that you can pull.
que,
It's like,
que
make them
los
look like that.
nuevos
Oh, I'm waiting for some
MTX
sort of advantage, but
Yeah.
no.
van
I'm
a
waiting for
lootear
someone to
ítems
write
por
into
ti o van a
custom
pelear por ti?
support, all angry about the fact they thought they were going to be
Que le
able
dijo,
to,
eso es
like, cheat
correcto.
by buying these
Los
macros.
los
We do
MTX
try to make
parece
it
que te
clear that
ayudan,
it's
pero
just
realmente no.
cosmetic, but they certainly do quite exciting things. But if those things were real, then, you know, like exploding on death and killing the monsters would certainly be something special.
I've been curious about PoE Mobile, as it's been all quiet on that front until today's ExileCon announcement. How's development been going? And if you're happy to speak about it, is it still aiming to be quite a different experience to PoE Desktop, or is it going to be like a direct port, or how are you kind of progressing there?
Están hablando del por el
Progression's
momento.
going good. Yeah, we've got a lot to show, and we're saving that up for ExileCon next year.
Tenemos mucho para
The
mostrar, pero
direction
estamos
is
guardándolo
what we
para
talked about
ExileCon.
before. I don't know if I described it as quite a different experience. Like, there's certainly like mobile versions of games that play like mobile games, and ours is trying to represent as much of the full PC experience as we can do while still actually being playable on a phone. And so, you know, I mean, the ability to go and get a bunch of items, go do, you know, build a character, go and do some maps is still there, exactly like you would, except you're doing it with your hands on a touch device.
Okay.
With the focus on
Dice
endgame
que la
changes
idea
lately, is
del
there
Poe
still
Mobile
plans
es
to
que
rework
sea
the acts
lo más
as was
parecido
started
al juego
briefly?
de PC, pero que se puede jugar
That
en un
requires a
teléfono.
lot of work, and we are finding better value improving everything else in the game. I think there'll be some light progress on that, but it's not a major priority for us internally at the moment.
All right. Well, sorry we can get to all of your questions, chat. I appreciate you asking them, though. Chris, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to chat to you today. I look forward to checking out the new
Voy a prestar mi
expansion.
teléfono también,
Thanks very much for
básicamente. Sí.
hosting.
You going to play at launch this time, depending
I
on
will
the
try
amount of
very
files?
hard to. Yeah, this is a good one.
Great. All right. Thank you
Okay.
very much, folks. Cheers.
All right, thanks.
Bye, Chris. Ok, so. Damn. O sea, lo que acabamos de ver es un dump gigante de cosas. Y no hemos terminado, gente. Ahorita vamos a ver patch notes, los únicos y sobre todo, lo primero que quiero ver es el trickster. ¿Qué onda el trickster? Eso es lo primero que quiero ver. Lo primerísimo que quiero ver. Entonces, esto ya fue, lo voy a dejar muteado igual, pero si las moscas, pero... here we go. ¿Dónde está lo del trickster? Derrotos me mandó un montón de cosas. Ahí está. Ya murió. GG. Bueno. Todavía no podemos hacer todo el bingo porque tenemos que ver exactamente qué cosas fueron y qué cosas no. Pero Kalandra no aparece. Pareciera que sí va a aparecer, pero no estamos completamente seguros. Buff melee indirecto. Esta no fue. Al menos 2 currencies nuevas. Tenemos la cosa esta tradiable. Eso no sé si es una currency. Mecánica con algo de los únicos. Not really. Esto tenemos que buscarlo. New boss, no sabemos nada. Nueva zona de la liga. We got this one. Nueva invitación, no sabemos nada. Rework al trade, nada que ver. Quality of life, no dijeron nada. El Ashes tenemos que verlo en Dispatch Notes. Este rework decente, mega marcado. Y tenemos hasta ahora todo esto. Vamos a ver si faltan todavía cosas. Harvest, no lo marqué ya. Harvest Trading ya lo tenemos acá. Entonces, currency la de Harvest. Esa no cuenta. O no sé si contaría. ¿Qué opinan ustedes? ¿Cuenta o no cuenta? Cuenta porque, o sea, es currency nueva. Sí, sí, ok. Todo el mundo dice que sí, los voy a tomar. Al menos 2 currencies nuevas, claro que va a haber, porque por lo menos tenemos los 3 tipos, ¿no? Entonces, makes sense, dude. Y es tradeable, Harvest tradeable también, ahí está todo. Sana vuelve, ok, estamos muy cerca de hacer esta línea, menos mal que no. Ahora, alguien me estaba pasando, alguien tiene el link de las ascendencias. Ah, ya la vi. Me lo pasó Darlotus. Ok, está aquí en Twitter. Esta página no existe, maravilloso. Buen trabajo, Darlotus. Mentira, aquí está. Ok, let's see. Primero que todo, déjenme acomodar este desastre. Porque hice un desastre acá. Ok. Ok. Ok, un poco... Bro, me moví tanto la cámara. Tanto moví la cámara. What the fuck. Ok, perfecto. Ahí estamos. Ahí estamos. No, todo esto... esta imagen que es esta de acá. Esta ya la puedo quitar. Esta no la vamos a usar. Lo que me está faltando aquí es esto. Perfecto. Ahora sí estamos todo. Ahora estamos todo. Abrir una imagen nueva. Y veamos. Ok. Trickster es lo primero que quiero ver. Vamos a empezar por Heartstopper. Tuvo un cambio. Heartstopper sufrió un cambio fuerte. Vamos a poner también una musiquita para sentirnos medio así, ¿sabes? En el flow del asunto. Ok. Ok, listo las notes. Ya lo vamos a ver. Quiero ver primero que todo el Trickster. Primero que todo quiero ver el Trickster. Miren. Heartstopper sufrió un cambio. Cada 10 segundos tomas 40% menos daño de hits durante 5 segundos, 40% menos daño overtime durante 5 segundos. Aquí por lo menos, y eso son consecutivos, por lo tanto es 5 segundos menos daño, 5 segundos menos damage overtime. ¿Qué opinan? ¿Qué opinan de esto versus el de antes? El de antes era, cada 10 segundos, durante 5 segundos no tomas damage overtime. ¿Qué opinan? Yo siento que se va a sentir mejor ahora, pero no sé si sea mejor ahora. Por lo menos se va a sentir consistente, todo el tiempo tienes algo positivo. Ok, ese es el primero, este es como el más vamos a seguir hacia adelante. Evasion, Maximum Energy Shield y Moving Speed. Nada mal. Nada mal. Vamos a ir en contra de las agujas del reloj porque estos son los que son de uno solo y estos son el que tiene varios. Así que veamos este lado. Evasión y Energy Shield Damage. Ok, daño genérico, evasión y Energy Shield. Eso está genial. El nodo pequeño ya de por sí es bueno. Polymath. 3% more damage por cada maestría diferente que hayas puesto. Y 1% por cada tipo de maestría diferente que hayas puesto. O sea, estás cuenta en todos. Si pones 3 maestrías diferentes, y es 9% more damage y 3% de life, Energy Shield y Mana on Kill. Lo que se refieren con maestrías diferentes es, por ejemplo, esta es Life Mastery, esta es Accuracy Mastery, esta es Lich Mastery, esta es Dagger Mastery. Todas estas son diferentes. Y yo creo que tomar al menos 5 maestrías diferentes es muy fácil. Es muy fácil. 5. 5 es recontra fácil. Si tú te metes en quiero agarrar 10, yo creo que las puedes agarrar. Así que este nodo va a ser el más piqueado de la ascendencia, sin lugar a dudas. Sin lugar a dudas va a ser el más piqueado. Swift Killer, 200% charge duration general. Y más 2 a la máximo frenzy charges. OP. I like it. I like it. Y el otro me da increase frenzy charge duration. Muy bien. Frenzy Stacker, otro Frenzy Stacker. ¿Sabes para qué es esto? Lo que pasa es que esto es un... Si esto estuviese en la arquera, sería rotísimo. Pero 2 Frenzy Charges es un montón. Un montón. Y 200 de Increase Frenzy Charge Duration es demasiado, gente. Yo he hecho esto. Yo he jugado con con Charge Duration. Y se nota muchísimo. ¿Se acuerdan? ¿Se acuerdan que yo jugué un build en el que yo estaba metiendo aquí en las cargas? En lugar de poner el 3% de daño, que me daba como 10% más daño, yo dije, no, voy a poner el 100% de Charge Duration para que duren 20 segundos. Y era genial. Y era genial. Y yo dije, lo voy a dejar así. O sea, esto, OP. Muy, muy OP. Solo hay que buscar una forma de generar frenzies, que ya de por sí es la carga más fácil de generar del juego, en mi opinión. Ya de por sí Blood Rage, por ejemplo, listo. Ya, eso es frenzies gratis. Ahorita voy a leer las patch notes. Relax, relax, people, relax. Vamos a ver primero que todo los cambios al trickster. Ahorita vamos por las otras. Chill. Vamos a ver aquí. Evasión, Energy Shield, ataque y cast speed. Eso está muy bueno. Son un montón de cosas útiles. Y sobre todo queda de todo. One Step Ahead se llama esta. Tu action speed es al menos 108% del base value. Y la action speed de los monstruos cercanos es cuando mucho 90% del base value. Esto está roto. Esto está roto. Porque voy a explicar qué significa esto. Tu action speed nada más puede ser modificada por cosas que nada más tiene que ser max. O sea, cuando mínimo 108% del base value. Significa que, ¿saben cuando te slovean un montón y tu personaje ni se mueve? Eso no vuelve a pasar. Cuando mucho, te van a slovear a un poquito menos. Un poquito menos de lo que es la velocidad normal del personaje. Loquísimo. Loquísimo esto. Y de paso sloveas a los enemigos cercanos. Eso está muy bueno. Esto contra los bosses. ¡Mua! Excelente. Si te auto-sloveas, no cuenta. Porque mínimo es 108%. Es genial. Genial. Esto, genial. Ok, ahora vamos a hacer un pequeño cambio. Me voy a poner acá para leer esta parte. Ok, evasión, energy shield y movement speed. Ok, igual que esta, decente. Escape Artist, lo mismo que el otro, pero esta a mí no me parece que sea muy bueno. No obstante, esto da camino a 2 nuevas que van a poner. Vamos a ver qué tenemos acá. Tenemos Spellbreaker, 20% de chance de suprimir spell damage, que es un montón, 20% bastante. Previene 10% del suppressed damage si estás en full energy shield. 50% de increased chance. 50% de chance de que el energy shield se empiece a recargar cuando suprimas spell damage. Esto es un nodo ultra defensivo. Ultra defensivo este nodo. Es bueno. No es la locura, pero es muy defensivo. Para empezar, te da algo que creo que no existe en casi que ninguna otra parte del juego. Creo que hay un ítem más que te permite que la recarga de Energy Shield empiece de golpe, pero esto está genial. Esto en combinación de Wicked Ward, que hace que si tu recarga ha empezado recientemente no se interrumpa. Eso básicamente es un burst de regeneración de Energy Shield brutal. Está genial esto. Genial. Y Soul Drinker, miren, ni me hagan hablarlo. Soul Drinker es una locura. 2% del daño, del daño general del daño. Lo licheas como Energy Shield. 20% de ataque que este speed está licheando Energy Shield. Y el Energy Shield Leech no son removidos cuando el Energy Shield está lleno. Demente esto. De hecho, el trickster ahorita es tan bueno que el peor nodo es este. Este es el peor nodo que hay ahorita. Tú puedes agarrar estos 4 y agarrar la Forbidden Flesh y te agarras este de aquí. Está muy, pero muy bueno. Volvió el rey, así mismo. Para mí, yo creo que uno de los setups más populares va a ser Polymath, One Step Ahead y Soul Drinker, pasando por Escape Artist. Trickster para Hot en realidad no está mal, ¿eh? En realidad no está mal. Heartstopper y Soul Drinker no están nada mal. Nada mal. Y Polymath. Suelta la starter con esa ascendencia. Oye. Está brutal. El cambio del Trickster, o sea, más que bueno. Me alegro que hayan hecho esto. Genial. Creo que en Damage Over Time no es tan bueno como antes. Pero con Polymath puedes llegar a tener muy cerca el daño que tenías antes. ¿Te arriesgas de starter? Vamos a ver. Vamos a ver. Déjame ver si el starter no está decidido ya por mí.